Fairy Tale. Master 8 Types of Dragon Slaying Magic at the Start. Chapter 21. Hearing the Verdict. Natsu and Gajeel looked at each other, their faces full of bitterness. Mobai was calm and collected his magic power back into his body. He slowly walked towards the two seriously injured people and stretched out his arms. When you become stronger one day, you are welcome to challenge me again, just like today. As long as you beat me, I will tell you everything about the Dragon Clan. By the way, if you are short of money, you can also support installment payment of rent tilde. Being pulled up by Mobai. Gajeel sighed lightly, and a little regret flashed between his eyebrows. Originally, he observed Natsu and Mobai fighting for a long time, thinking that he would have a chance to defeat him after Mobai's magic power was depleted. But the result? Mobai seemed to have turned on unlimited firepower, and the magic power in his body was almost endless. Even if he was reserved, every attack could still completely crush him and Natsu. You are indeed very strong, Gajeel said hoarsely. Natsu held Mobai's hand and was pulled up. He brushed off the dust on his body, but still raised his fist in dissatisfaction. Hey Mobai, although I lost today, sooner or later I will definitely defeat you. Let you tell me the whereabouts of Igneel in person. Mobai smiled faintly. I am looking forward to it. But remember to prepare the rent for next year before the next challenge tilde. Natsu. Macau came up with a smile on his face and put his arm around Natsu's shoulder affectionately. It's okay, Natsu, just challenge Mobai boldly. I will pay part of the rent for you in the future. Here's 1000 J, take it. Ah, why are you so nice to me suddenly? Because I bet 5000 J on Mobai to win just now, and then won 3000 J, so you don't have to share part of it. Hee. Natsu wanted to slap Macau. After a brief chat with other members, Mobai left the guild alone and went to the outskirts of Magnolia Guild. Lucy had previously introduced him to a villa for rent. Speaking of which, I have been wandering outside since I came to this world, and it seems that I still don't have a stable place to live. I hope the house Lucy introduced is not a pitfall. Mobai thought to himself. If you want to stay in Fairy Tale for a long time, it is better to rent a house. Passing through the rumbling carriages and the noisy crowd, the destination is in the quiet fields not far away. As Mobai walked forward step by step, he was planning the idea of an ideal residence in his mind. But he vaguely sensed that 3 nearby magic powers were quietly approaching him. It seems, I am being followed. After realizing this, Mobai chose to play along. He even deliberately slowed down his pace. See what they want to do. 2 men and 1 woman hid in the dark, secretly following behind Mobai, always keeping him within their attack range. The Fairy Tale emblem was also engraved on different parts of their bodies. The 3 were not outsiders. They were partners of the Fairy Tale Guild, belonging to the team under the command of S-Class Wizard Laxus, the Thunder Gods. The Thunder Gods had just returned from their mission, but they did not see Mobai's previous fight with Natsu Gajeel, and received Laxus's order. Work together to sneak attack Mobai. That's why they kept following him, looking for the opportunity to take action. After hesitating for a moment, the female member of the Thunder Gods, Alba Green, finally couldn't help asking. I still think, is it really appropriate to directly attack teammates of your own guild like this? What if the magic power is too strong and something unexpected happens? Another person, Fried, immediately scolded. This is Laxus's order, just do it. He has his own intentions. Before Alba Green responded again, a subtle light suddenly flashed in Fried's eyes, and he immediately shouted in a low voice. The opportunity has come, get ready. At this moment, Mobai just walked to an open space, seemingly defenseless. For the Thunder Gods, this is the best time to sneak attack. Go. The 3 of them simply stopped hiding and released their power to attack Mobai directly. Dark text, severe pain. Light killing cannon. Alba Green also gritted her teeth and released a killing move. Fairy machine gun. Several magic beams were emitted almost at the same time. Mobai continued to walk forward slowly, without any precaution or avoidance. Based on the experience of the three thunder gods working together, if Mobai was hit by this combined force at the same time, he would be seriously injured if not dead. Boom! The moment the magic power touched Mobai's body, a huge explosion occurred, and a black hole crater was directly blown up on the spot, stirring up thick dust. But the three of them looked closely. But they only saw a flash of lightning, and Mobai was still walking forward without looking back, unscathed, with a firm step. Even his clothes were not stained with dust. The three of them were stunned and looked at each other, trying to find the answer from their teammates, but for a moment they could not understand what was happening in front of them. What? Did it miss? Impossible. Look at the crater, it's obvious that he was just there, but just now it seemed that a flash of lightning passed, and then. Fried was the most meticulous among the thunder gods. And through Mobai's performance just now, he quickly reacted and analyzed. I understand. What we just saw was just a lightning afterimage. Lightning afterimage. Isn't that something that only lightning wizards like Laxus can master? Alba Green was shocked. Fried nodded slightly. That's right. This Mobai may have the same lightning magic as Laxus, and the speed is so fast that it is completely beyond our perception. When Mobai returned in the morning, the three members of the Thunder Gods were not in the guild, and they knew nothing about the magic that Mobai mastered. While they were surprised, a sudden gust of fire suddenly broke out in front of them. The raging flames attacked the three people directly, which was the fire dragon killing power used by Mobai. Being attacked by them for no reason with a killing move, even if they were partners in the same guild, Mobai would not just let them go. At this moment, he just casually returned a blow, and it had reached the level of destruction of the three members of the Thunder Gods' joint attack. Not good. Fried felt bad, and gritted his teeth and was about to launch a spell to resist. The other two also smelled a trace of extremely dangerous breath from it, and hurriedly mobilized the magic power in their bodies to defend. In an instant, a golden lightning figure shot out from the side, punching the flames directly. The waves generated by the intersection of lightning and fire had already cut the nearby grass and trees into pieces. The three of them are just doing things for me, and I gave the order to attack. I apologize to you. A deep voice came from the golden shadow. As the light faded, Fried and his companions immediately saw the face of the person who blocked them. This was a blonde young man in a black coat. The three people's faces instantly showed ecstasy. Laxus. The blonde young man was the leader of the Thunder Gods, one of the top fighters of the Fairy Tale Guild, and the S-class wizard Laxus. And before that, Laxus had heard about Mobai's deeds and became interested in him. That's why the three Thunder Gods under his command attacked together to test him. Although this way of testing is a bit violent, it is also in line with Laxus's current frivolous and irritable personality. After hearing Laxus's active apology, Mobai's offensive immediately slowed down, and he slowly withdrew the magic power of the attack, thinking in his heart. First the force, then the courtesy, it's a bit interesting. Let's hear what they want to say. The confrontation stopped. Laxus also breathed a sigh of relief, turned around and said to the Thunder Gods. Back off, you are no match for Mobai. He is a dragon slayer wizard who controls 8 different attribute magics, including lightning. 8. The three of them looked at each other. The expressions on their faces were almost exactly the same as the expressions of other people in the guild in the morning. While they were shocked, Mobai had already stopped and looked back, with a kind smile on his face, and took the initiative to greet, as if the conflict just now had never happened. Hello. Chapter 22. Slowly putting away the lightning aura on his body, Laxus walked straight forward and looked at Mobai with a more serious look in his eyes. Let me introduce myself. I am Laxus, the strongest S-class wizard of Fairy Tale at present. These three are my team, the Thunder Gods, Fried, Bigasro, and Alba Green. Mobai nodded slightly and simply responded, Newcomer Mobai. As for the purpose of Laxus's trip, it was also very straightforward, just to bring Mobai into the group. The arrogant Laxus has long been dissatisfied with the current Lax Guild. He is extremely eager for power and hopes to lead Fairy Tail to become the recognized strongest guild and be respected by others. It is worth mentioning that Laxus is also the grandson of the current President Makarov, with the identity of an S-class wizard. He is indeed a strong contender for the next president candidate. But he can't wait for that day. He can't wait to start a civil war and force Makarov to abdicate. The recent appearance of Mobai will be a very uncertain factor in this civil war. That's why Laxus has the same attitude as before, trying not to make enemies with him as much as possible. Laxus paused, and said with a fake smile, "Although you are a newcomer, I still want to praise you. You made a lot of noise in the Paradise Tower." "Thank you." Mobai's reply was concise and indifferent. Hearing this, the three Thunder Gods were a little angry. They had never seen a young wizard of the same generation dare to treat Laxus like this. Laxus squeezed out an interested smile on his face and asked, "There is one thing I am curious about. In your eyes, what kind of existence is the Fairy Tail Guild?" "It's pretty good, everyone is very harmonious, Tilda." Mobai still had the same attitude as before, laughing indifferently. Laxus was slightly displeased, and gradually put away his smile. He frowned slightly, and continued to ask, "Don't you think the guild is gradually decaying? Perhaps we need a more powerful fairy tale, a guild with a far-reaching reputation and awe." At this point, Mobai could already guess what he wanted to say next. Sure enough, Laxus's words began to show his edge. "I am the strongest wizard among the younger generation of the guild, and now I have the strength that is not inferior to the old man. If we can get your help again, we will definitely be able to create the most powerful wizard guild in the entire continent. By then, everyone will be terrified and in awe of the name Fairy Tail." The meaning of recruiting is already quite obvious. However, fearing Mobai's strength, Laxus still did not speak too bluntly. Taking a deep breath, Laxus' eyes showed endless ambition, waiting for Mobai's response. But Mobai just turned his head and said two words lightly. "Not interested. If there is nothing else, I will leave first. If I don't rent a house, I will have to sleep on the street tonight." After the voice fell, Mobai left without looking back and continued to walk in the direction of the address left by Lucy. But he didn't take 2 steps. He sensed the monstrous lightning-attributed magic power of Laxus behind him, which seemed to carry a lot of anger and resentment. But Mobai didn't care, and continued to walk forward calmly step by step, until his back disappeared from the sight of several people. For a long time, seeing that Laxus was still not moving, Bigasro could not help asking, "Did that guy not understand what I meant? He actually refused the invitation of the Thunder Gods." Putting away the violent magic power on his body, Laxus said slowly, "No, he already knew it very well." "Then what should we do? Should we postpone it?" "No, proceed as planned. The festival will start the civil war on time the day after tomorrow morning," Laxus said firmly. Fried pondered for a moment and asked tentatively, "But Mobai will be a big threat. Do I need to find a way to trap him?" Laxus shook his head, with a flash of war and arrogance in his eyes. "No, if I use this method, he will not obey even if I become the president. I will fight him in person in 2 days. The results will be clear at that time." On the other side, Mobai didn't take Laxus's matter to heart at all, and went straight to the villa recommended by Lucy. To be honest, this villa is not bad, with 2 floors, spacious and bright. Even if 6 or 7 people live in it, it won't seem crowded. Especially the big bathroom on the 2nd floor. The pool made Mobai particularly excited. The only drawback is that it is a bit far from the guild. If you are in a hurry, you need to fly there with the storm dragon wings. But it is also within the acceptable range. After bargaining, Mobai rented the villa for 180,000 J per month. Since Natsu and Gajil are both poor, Mobai didn't say much. As long as they pay 1 month's rent when they are rich, they can slowly pay in installments. For now, I'd better take care of the first month by myself. However, the 200,000 J in Kobo Mountain last time, after paying the rent and deducting some daily expenses, there is not much left. In Magnolia, this rent is not very expensive, and it is nothing compared to Urza. Urza has more than 100 pieces of clothing for disguise. Although the girl's apartment is spacious enough, it is obviously impossible to store too many clothes in one room. Urza simply rented 5 rooms directly, broke through the middle wall, and enjoyed the treatment of a presidential suite alone. Correspondingly, she has to pay 500,000 J in rent every month. Looking at his shy wallet, Mobai couldn't help smacking his lips. I still have to take more commissions. Before becoming an S-class wizard, I still have to go out with Urza and others to get high-paying commissions, otherwise I'm afraid I won't even have food to eat. The next morning. After arriving at the guild, Mobai did not see Urza, Natsu and others, and was planning to find some commissions suitable for him to complete independently. But he found a short old man squatting at the notice board. As if he was waiting for him. President. At this time, Makarov's face no longer had the smile he used to joke with everyone. Seeing Mobai, Makarov immediately said seriously, "Come with me, I have something to discuss with you." Mobai thought to himself. In the past, even if he received criticism from the council, or other guild members destroyed half of the town while carrying out the commission, Makarov always laughed it off. There is only one possibility that made him so serious. Something went wrong with the guild members. And it is likely a security problem. Perhaps the president has also realized Laxus's recent abnormality. Mobai followed Makarov to the innermost room. Locked the door. After making sure that no one followed, Makarov asked about Mobai's recent situation. "You have been in the guild for a while, right? How do you feel about adapting? Is the commission going smoothly?" Mobai said speechlessly, "President, I only worked once. What do you think?" "Ahem, is that so? Maybe I remembered it wrong." Mobai rolled his eyes. "Just say whatever you want to say." Hearing this, Makarov cleared his throat, regained his solemn demeanor, and said in a stern voice. "What I am going to tell you now involves a team in the guild that contains an S-class wizard. Laxus and his thunder gods. Tomorrow is the harvest festival of Magnolia. According to their personalities, they would not participate in such activities, but they rushed back at this time. Plus, Laxus's behavior has become more and more abnormal recently. He always conflicts with others for no reason, and even fights. I suspect that they may do something to hurt the guild." Makarov's words just confirmed Mobai's previous speculation. As Laxus's grandfather, Makarov naturally knew the character of his grandson very well. He obviously realized something. Mobai couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "President. Actually, Laxus and the Thunder Gods came to see me yesterday." "What?" Makarov was shocked. "Did they hurt you?" Mobai shook his head gently. "Laxus came to me and said that he wanted to change the current situation of the guild, to build the most powerful fairy tale, and hoped to get my help. But I think the current guild is very good. Everyone is very harmonious, and the guild is like a noisy guild every day." The corners of Makarov's mouth had a hint of excitement. With approval in his eyes, he jumped onto the table and patted Mobai's shoulder. "Sure enough, it is the wisest choice to ask you to come today." Mobai smiled, and then asked, "What do you need me to do specifically, President?" Makarov pondered for a moment, and said righteously, "At tomorrow's harvest festival, they are likely to take action. Once I have no time to take care of it, you will be the best candidate to suppress Laxus. In order not to cause a commotion, I only mentioned this matter to you. At that time, you must be sure to protect the safety of my partners." Makarov paused for a moment, then his voice became a little trembling, and he added, "Even if Laxus is my grandson, But if he does something that hurts his guildmates and Magnolia residents, I will never condone it. Mobai sighed lightly, and naturally knew Makarov's current dilemma. On the left side of the scale is his grandson who he raised, and on the right side is the guild he has devoted his life to. Makarov has poured almost all his love into these two sides, but now, the two sides are likely to conflict. Mobai didn't interfere much, but clenched his fists and assured Makarov. Everyone in the guild, and Magnolia, I will protect them well. Makarov's old face finally showed a relieved smile. Please. Chapter 23. After coming out of the room, Mobai began to recall the details of the fairy tale civil war and thought about what to prepare. Makarov entrusted such an important task to him, a new member who had just joined the guild, so he naturally didn't want to disappoint him. I remember that Laxus had a thorough civil war plan, which seemed to have to be cracked step by step. How about I go and beat Laxus and the Thunder Gods today? As long as they are seriously injured, the civil war tomorrow will definitely not happen, right? Or, I'll just take the initiative and become the president of Fairy Tale tonight. His mind was in a mess. After all, this time he had to face his guildmates. Unconsciously, after leaving Makarov, Mobai returned to the front desk of the guild. Are you worried? The sweet voice pulled Mobai out of his wild thoughts. Looking up, Mirajan held up her cheek with her jade hands, looking at him with a smile. Mira, actually, I'm not that annoying. Here, I'll treat you to cake tilde, don't be unhappy tilde. Before Mobai could explain, Mirajan had already put the plate in front of him. A piece of white and delicate cream cake was placed in the center of the plate, with cherries on the top. This. Try it. I just made it this morning. After a brief hesitation, Mobai chose to pick up the spoon and scoop it up. Houchi. The cake filled his mouth and made him speak unclearly. Mirajan smiled and said, if you like, come to the front desk to find me anytime, I'll treat you tilde. I don't know if it was because of the sweetness of the cake or the healing smile of Mirajan. Mobai felt relieved immediately. The light bulb in his mind seemed to be lit up all of a sudden. He seemed to have a preliminary idea of what Makarov had told him. By the way, Mira, is there a magic tool store in Magnolia? Also, are there any craftsmen who can do stone carving? Mirahe tilted his head and thought for a while. There seemed to be quite a few tool stores in the north of the city. As for stone carving, I remember there is a stone-shaped magician living there. Stone shape, magic similar to Gray's ice shape. Both use magic power to condense into other objects. Thank you. Swallowed the remaining cake whole. Mobai wiped his mouth casually, left the guild and headed straight to the north of the city. This trip to the north of the city may be related to the final outcome of the civil war that will take place tomorrow. The next morning. Since getting up, the noise in the town can be heard faintly. Even if you live in the suburbs, you can vaguely hear it. The event started so early. As for the streets, posters of the Harvest Festival were posted everywhere, and the number of pedestrians was twice as much as usual. If it weren't for Makarov's mission, he really wanted to go shopping. At this time, the Fairy Tale Guild was also very lively. In addition to most of the wizards in the guild, many residents of the town also gathered. The hall was full. In 5 minutes, the Grand Miss Beauty selection will open here. As soon as he entered the hall, Mobai heard the heated discussion of the townspeople. It is said that there will be another beautiful wizard joining Fairy Tale this year. I am looking forward to what they will look like tilde. Of course I support Mirajan. She is the cover girl of Wizard Weekly. I won't even look at that magazine without her. Don't you think Urza is also very beautiful? I dream of being trampled under the feet of the Fairy Queen. I am Miss Levi's dog. Pushing through the noisy crowd, Mobai finally saw the familiar short figure. President. Makarov also nodded, his expression slightly relaxed compared to yesterday. So far, Laxus and the others have not taken any action, so let's watch the game first. Mobai's face was full of black lines. This old man. but as a person who has experienced it. If nothing unexpected happens, most of the plans for the next actions of the Thunder Gods will be under Mobai's control. It seems nice to admire the swimsuits of the guild ladies. It shouldn't delay things, right? Wait. Having dealt with the 3 members of the Thunder Gods before, as a dragon slayer, Mobai naturally remembered their respective magical auras. At this moment, he was sensing that one of the magical powers was approaching. Is this magical power, Alba Green? Is it coming? Makarov on the side was unaware of this. Mobai, who do you think will win in the end? Is it Mirajan, Urza? But I think Lucy has a good figure, and Juvia. What do you think? Mobai, Where are they? Although he said that, Makarov was still thinking about the Thunder Gods and Laxus. In addition, Mobai's sudden disappearance made him even more suspicious. I hope nothing unexpected will happen. Makarov sighed lightly, straightened his body, and refocused his eyes on the center of the stage in front of him, waiting for the curtain to be unveiled. After a while, as the music sounded, the crowd, which was originally a little quiet, became lively again. Dear citizens of Magnolia, welcome to the annual Harvest Festival of Fairy Tale. The Fairy Tale Most Beautiful Miss selection will be held soon. Then without further ado, please welcome the contestant number 1, Kana Alupalona. Amidst the applause and cheers, the lights came into focus, the curtain was unveiled, and the beautiful woman in gorgeous dress walked out gracefully. But when everyone saw her face, they were all stunned. Hello everyone, I am today's number 1 contestant, Alba Green from the Thunder Gods. After a few seconds of silence, a large number of discussions immediately rang out from the audience. It's Alba Green. How come she is also participating in the competition? She is not Kana either. So, the Thunder Gods have also returned to the guild. Let's not talk about this for now, the competition will continue. Where is the next contestant? Where is Arbiska? Makarov also had an ominous premonition in his heart. Something is going to happen. Looking at the chattering people in the audience, Alba Green said slowly. Today's competition is only for me, there is no need to continue, just declare me the champion. Bullshit. I clearly remember there were 7 contestants. Give me back Miss Mira. Seeing the audience's complaints getting louder and louder, Alba Green smiled contemptuously and slowly pulled open the curtain behind the stage. Sorry, I just came from the backstage. I am indeed the only contestant. As the curtain slowly opened, what came into everyone's eyes were 7 stone statues, the same size as real people, and their appearances could even be vaguely distinguished. Urza, Lucy, Mirajan. Aren't they the 7 people who were supposed to participate in the beauty pageant today? It's Alba Green's petrification magic. Her eyes can turn people into stone statues. Don't look into her eyes. Makarov finally realized that this was a conspiracy, and the actions of the Thunder Gods had already begun. He quickly stood on the table and shouted to the surroundings. All spectators, retreat outside the guild immediately. Quick. Most of the audience were ordinary people who could not use magic. When they heard that there was danger, they all rushed to the door of the hall. Until they saw the last person leave, Makarov burst out with amazing magic pressure and shouted at Alba Green on the stage. Asshole! Restore them to their original state immediately. But as soon as the voice fell, a thunderbolt suddenly flashed and landed in the center of the stage. Seeing the appearance of the visitor, Makarov immediately clenched his fists. Laxus. With a wild smile on his face, Laxus looked around the crowd, but did not find the person he wanted to see the most, and could not help but feel a little disappointed. Laxus, remove the petrification immediately. Makarov warned again. Laxus, however, ignored them and announced. Don't worry, if you want to save them, come and play a game with me first, a game of confrontation. The rules are simple, all the wizards of Fairy Tale will fight against me and the Thunder Gods, and the location is set to the entire Magnolia. Find and defeat us within 3 hours, and these women will be restored to their original state, If you lose, do you want to save them? You must recognize me as the new president of Fairy Tale. The last sentence was said. Laxus finally showed his fangs and revealed his true purpose. Don't joke too much. Makarov roared. Finally, an amazing burst of magic power broke out, and the originally short body kept growing until it formed a giant as tall as the entire guild. It's the president's giant magic. This kind of magic fluctuation, such a strong sense of oppression. Quote. Laxus is going to suffer a loss. While everyone was discussing, Laxus showed a disdainful smile and directly chose to ignore Makarov's warning. According to the rules, defeat me within 3 hours, otherwise there is no need to discuss anything. Exclamation mark quote. Now I declare that the fairy tale civil war has begun. See Laxus still stubborn, Makarov was about to burst out his magic to teach this unruly grandson a lesson. But a flash of lightning suddenly flashed in front of him. Instantly, everyone's vision was blocked. There was only light in front of them, which hurt their eyes. When everyone regained their vision, there were only 7 lifelike stone sculptures left on the huge stage. Is Laxus no longer in the guild? Alba Green can't be found either. They should have escaped together during the gap just now. This is bad. Are we really going to go to war with the Thunder Gods? President. After hesitating for a moment, Makarov looked at the petrified girl on the stage. After learning from the pain, he finally made up his mind. This time it's not just Laxus's challenge, it's also a test for our entire guild. Everyone listen up. Within 3 hours, find the Thunder Gods scattered in Magnolia and do everything you can to defeat them. As soon as this was said, the guild responded instantly, and the enthusiasm was high. Defeat the Thunder Gods in 3 hours. Macau, come with me to the west of the city. Hurry. Man. Swarmed out of the guild like a swarm of bees. Chapter 24. Makarov looked around. He was the only one left in the empty hall. Maybe Mobai was controlled by the Thunder Gods before the girls were petrified. In that case, I'll have to deal with Laxus. Thinking of this, Makarov slowly restored his body to its original size and ran out of the guild. Just as he ran to the door. Bang! Suddenly he felt like he had hit something. He didn't have time to brake, and his whole body crashed into it. It hurt. What? Invisible glass wall. Using his magic power, Makarov punched it, and a purple-black text appeared out of thin air on the invisible wall. Magicians and stone statues over 80 years old are not allowed to pass. It's Fried's spell. Fried is one of the 3 Thunder Gods, good at using spells and text magic. Once the spell is successfully cast, unless you can completely crush it with extremely strong magic, you must follow the rules. Makarov sighed lightly. The spell in front of him was obviously set up specifically to trap him. Fried had been planning for a long time. He would secretly reinforce the spell almost every time he passed the guild gate. It would be difficult to break it in a short time. Just as he was thinking about what to do next, he saw 2 people walking over from the inner hall as if nothing had happened. Natsu, Gajil, are you still here? I was hungry just now, so I couldn't find something to eat in the kitchen. Natsu lowered his eyebrows and eyes, obviously finding nothing. Gajil next to him was holding a pile of iron pots and pans and eating happily. By the way, didn't they say there was a celebration? Where did everyone go? Looking at the 2 relaxed guys, Makarov suppressed the urge to vomit blood in his heart. No time to explain. I suspect that Mobai has been controlled by Laxus and his men. You should go to the town to search immediately, find Laxus and defeat him. Hearing this, Natsu immediately shouted excitedly. Want to fight with Laxus? You allowed me to do this. I'm excited. Once upon a time, Natsu challenged Laxus many times, but he was always beaten away by a punch. This time, with Makarov's permission, he didn't ask why, grabbed Gajil's arm and ran out. Slow down, you bastard. I haven't finished eating yet. Pop. The sound of the collision reached his ears. Makarov was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out. Natsu and Gajil, who were originally full of energy, actually bumped into the ritual barrier at the door at this moment. Damn it, what is that? Why can't I get out? Rubbing his nose, Natsu was furious and punched and kicked continuously, until the ceiling of the guild shook. The ritual barrier was still intact. Makarov was worried that the two would tear down the guild again, so he hurriedly stopped them. Stop it first, I have a question for you. Ah. You two are also over 80 years old. According to the rules of the ritual, wizards and stone statues over 80 years old are not allowed to leave the barrier. According to the elimination method, it seems that there is only one possibility, over 80 years old. Looking at the world outside the guild that was out of reach again, Makarov sighed. Is it only possible to bow to Laxus? After a few seconds of silence. You can't say that. Hearing the familiar voice, Makarov suddenly raised his head, but found that the new member of the guild who had been entrusted with an important task by him before had appeared in front of him at some point, and was looking at him with a smile. Mobai. Wait, are they behind you? Aluza, Lucy. Makarov looked behind Mobai in disbelief. It turned out to be the 7 girls who were petrified by Alba Green. The girls were dressed up and looked like they were just ready to participate in a beauty pageant. Looking at the center of the stage, the 7 stone sculptures were still standing there. President, Urza called tentatively. Makarov then recovered from his astonishment for a short time. How come? Didn't Alba Green petrify you just now? That's all thanks to Mobai. Aluza answered softly. With a smile, she looked at Mobai on the side. Mobai. Makarov's eyes were filled with joy of surviving a disaster. Under the expectant gaze of the crowd, Mobai then slowly spoke and talked about what had just happened. According to my analysis, Laxus wanted to start a split war without everyone knowing. The most beautiful lady selection this morning is undoubtedly a good opportunity. After learning about Alba Green's petrification ability, I speculated she would take action at that time, so she went to the north of the city and bought 7 life-size stone sculptures of girls. I sensed the arrival of Alba Green, so I quietly sneaked into the girls' locker room backstage and hid. Mobai was so excited that he accidentally said the truth. Ah. The girls looked at each other, blushing. They didn't have the magic of changing clothes like Urza, so they could only go to the locker room and use the most traditional method, taking off and changing. In this way, wouldn't Mobai see everything? Ahem, it's not what you think. I just wanted to monitor Alba Green. I didn't see anyone except Mira. Mirage's face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye, and she asked shyly. What did you see of me? No, nothing. Seeing that the explanation was getting worse, Mobai hurriedly got back to the point. At that time, I only saw Alba Green about to make a move, so I used lightning to flash her eyes, took all the girls out when she was not prepared, and then put the stone sculpture back to its original position. In this way, Alba Green thought it was Laxus who was taking action, and did not carefully check the authenticity of the stone sculpture. Mobai spoke carefully, fearing that he would say the wrong word again. After learning that Mobai was protecting them, the girls' expressions eased and they thanked him one after another. After experiencing the ups and downs of his mood, Makarov was so excited that he burst into tears. Mobai. I really didn't misjudge you, woo-woo. You are too happy too early, President. Mobai still had a smile on his face and took out a bill from his pocket and handed it over. The stone sculptures were made in a hurry, 400,000 J each, a total of 2.8 million J. I told the name of the guild, and the boss said that I could buy on credit and only charge me 3 million J. Remember to pay the bill dear tilde. When he saw the amount, Makarov's face changed at the speed of light, and he seemed to have lost his soul in an instant. The old man's eyes went black. He staggered a few steps and almost fell down. Finally, he had no choice but to squeeze out a few words from his throat. Prodigal son. You are such a prodigal son. Is this the mission you gave me, President? At least, I have ensured everyone's safety. Next, it's the Thunder Gods and Laxus. Mobai completed his mission with honor and was beaming with joy. Chapter 25. Mobai was about to leave the guild to look for Laxus. Suddenly, Urza called him again. Mobai, come here. Huh. Mobai's heart tightened. Urza was half crouching beside her stone sculpture, gently stroking it with her jade hand and carefully examining it. But every time her eyes swept over a place, Mobai's heart was lifted a little. My stone sculpture feels a little wrong. Is it? Is it? Mobai swallowed his saliva when he heard it, and instead of moving forward, he took a few steps back. He glanced away hurriedly and didn't dare to look Urza in the eye. But this unnatural behavior attracted the attention of other girls, and they all gathered around Urza. Huh, why are you so nervous? Is there really something wrong with this stone sculpture? It seems so. A certain part is bigger than other stone sculptures. Is Urza's this big? What? This is too obvious. It's bigger than Urza's. The skirt seems to be shorter too. Mobai didn't bring any private goods when he customized the stone sculpture, right? Do you remember the photo in the magazine? He was holding Urza in his arms when he came out of the Paradise Tower. The 6 girls looked at Mobai in unison, and their expressions were surprisingly consistent. It seems that he knows some secret. Look at Urza again. Her eyes are still on the stone sculpture. But this reaction without any reaction directly makes Mobai feel invisible and huge pressure. Well, now is not the time to talk. Wait until this battle is over. The battle is over. Mobai stuttered, and halfway through his words, the wings of the storm dragon suddenly appeared behind him. Then he rushed to the door of the hall and left in a hurry. Until then, Urza slowly stood up. President, I think this stone sculpture is well made. Can it be moved back to the apartment? Makarov was stunned for a moment. It turned out that she was just admiring the stone sculpture just now. But Mobai had a guilty conscience and started to talk directly. Yes, this is very Urza. Wait, she seemed to say that she wanted to move the stone sculpture away. Makarov's eyes rolled around, he raised his head with a smile on his face, and stretched out 5 fingers. No problem, only 500,000 J. Huh. Urza's expression gradually solidified, looking down at Makarov indifferently, with clouds gathering on her face. Makarov was sweating profusely. This time he seemed to be really going to lose his temper. On the other side. Not long after Mobai left the guild, he found a purple-clad man wearing a helmet and eye mask crouching on the roof in front of him. It seemed as if he had come all the way to wait for him. Gray has been defeated by me. I think your fate will not be much better than his. Mobai frowned. Bigasro. Like Alba Green, this man was a member of the Thunder God clan. But to Mobai's surprise, the 3 Thunder God clan members had not taken advantage of him in their combined attack before, but now Bigasro blocked his way alone. Looking up at the big clock on the church, it had only been 20 minutes since the civil war began. Forget it, just play with him. Mobai exhaled lightly, and finally focused his attention on Bigasro, and his magic power suddenly burst out. After feeling the aura emanating from Mobai, Bigasro's face couldn't help but become solemn. Of course he knew how big the gap was between the 2 sides. Originally, according to Fried's arrangement, he should have gone to the south of the city to intercept other guild members. But because he was worried that Laxus would suffer from Mobai, he blocked Mobai's path. Even if I am seriously injured, I have to consume Laxus's magic power. Thinking of this, Bigasro gritted his teeth and released 6 magic puppets with a wave of his hand. Linear formation / Granite Dragon's Shield. Mobai raised his hand to block it, and a brown heavy shield stood up. The puppet's sharp slash only scraped off a layer of stone chips. Light-killing cannon Pierce. Seeing that the situation was not good, Bigasro hurriedly used his magic power to attack. At this moment, Mobai had put away the rock shield. Unlike his toughness just now. At this moment, he was filled with hot wind and flames were faintly coming out from his fingertips. The roar of the fire dragon. Take a deep breath, and the thick flames surged out. In an instant, not only the light-killing cannon released by the puppets. Even the 6 wooden puppets were directly swallowed by the flames and burned alive. But Biggusrow's face did not show the panic of losing his weapon. He turned around and ran directly to the alley beside him. I have some magic power left, and I can also add magic to many objects, turn them into puppets. Just drag them down and find new objects. How could Mobai not know his idea? Naturally, he did not give him a chance and instantly turned into lightning to chase him. In the dark alley. Just when Biggusrow glanced at the abandoned dolls in the trash can and a glimmer of hope ignited in his heart, he suddenly sensed the violent energy emanating from behind. Lightning magic. He turned around in horror. But he found that Mobai had approached him without knowing when, and raised his fists. Thunder Dragon Jaw. Thunder roared in his ears. As Mobai's fists fell, Biggusrow felt dizzy. He was completely out of control and was repelled. Even his limbs were paralyzed and he could not move. He could only let his body roll on the ground for a few times before he barely stopped. The dust dispersed. Biggusrow's body was in the shape of a big character, lying on his back in the middle of the road, looking straight at the sky. At this moment, he finally realized why the arrogant Laxus showed strong fear of this newcomer that day. The dragon slayer of 8 elements. There is no way, the gap in strength is too big. Quote. Failure after all. Laxus, be careful. Praying silently in his heart. But after a few seconds, Biggusrow felt something strange coming from his body, and the numbness of the lightning gradually disappeared. Can he move? Looking at the parts of his body that Mobai had attacked just now, he could not see any external injuries, nor did he feel much pain. It turned out to be the effect of powerful magic and paralysis. I thought I was seriously injured. Finally coming to his senses, Biggusrow turned his head with difficulty and watched Mobai's leaving figure. After a long time, he finally dug out a few words from his teeth. Why? You have the fairy tale guild emblem on your body. No, on your tongue. I will not be cruel to my companions. However, you are out of this game now. Mobai's voice fell from the sky. The volume was not loud, but Biggusrow no longer had the desire to fight. He drew out the magic tool from his waist and gently activated it. The gorgeous magic fireworks were launched into the sky. Mobai didn't take it seriously. After flying for a long time, he noticed the magic fluctuations coming from the suburbs in the south of the city. It seems that there are people fighting over there. Anyway, it's still early, so go over and persuade them to stop fighting. Chapter 26. West of the city. Fried, wearing a red robe and holding a western sword, was looking down at Mirajan and Elfman, who were standing by the broken bridge. This man was the strongest of the thunder gods, and was good at spell writing. The spell that trapped Makarov and others was his masterpiece. Elfman, you have been defeated by Alba once, so you are out. You are not qualified to fight again. If you look closely, you can easily see that Elfman's upper body is naked and covered with scars. He had obviously just experienced a hard battle. Stop talking nonsense. If you are a man, accept my challenge. Mirajan certainly knew Elfman's character, and he would not stop until he was beaten unconscious. And quickly took his arm. Forget it, let's go back to the guild first. But Elfman still refused to give in, staring at Fried, as if he was looking at a jackal confronting him. You can't communicate with people who break the rules. Fried closed his eyes and shook his head gently. He didn't take the other party's warning seriously at all, and turned to leave. Stop. Mirage didn't pay attention, and Elfman broke free of his arm and rushed out. Fried's understatement was obviously the biggest irritation to him. Be careful, he has the strength of a quasi-S-class wizard. Mileage hurriedly reminded from behind. Elfman, who was furious, obviously didn't listen to these. Receive the soul of the Beast King. With the appearance of the magic circle, Elfman's already very tall body grew further. As his skin hardened and his strength increased, his body actually took on the posture of an orc, and he pounced on Fried with his teeth and claws. Receiving magic is the magic that Mirajan, Elfman and Lysina learned together when they entered the Fairy Tale Guild. It can receive the power of monsters or animals in a short period of time and strengthen itself. After practicing to perfection, it can even force the demon to be used by itself. Facing the aggressive Elfman, Fried was not in a hurry, sighed lightly, and still had the same indifferent expression. Incorrigible. As the Beast King's giant arm swung down, Fried suddenly dodged sideways, and the tip of the rapier swung a few times in the air. Purple-black words appeared out of thin air and then were engraved on Elfman's arm. What is that? Elfman only felt pain and itchiness on his arm, and stretched out his hand to activate magic to erase it, but it was useless. Dark words, severe pain. The rapier was put at his waist. Looking at Fried again, he found that one of his pupils had also turned dark purple, like a demon's eye. After being defined by the dark text, you will feel severe pain from all the nerve endings in your body every second. As soon as he finished speaking, Elfman, who was originally planning to continue attacking, suddenly knelt on the ground, and his face, which was originally full of fighting spirit, was now covered with hideous distortions. Every inch of skin on his body seemed to be torn apart and in severe pain. Ah! Elfman finally couldn't help but let out a painful howl, and the soul of the Beast King continued to dissipate, returning to his original human appearance. Miraja looked at the scene in front of him in horror. He rushed forward regardless of the danger, habitually wanting to protect Elfman behind him. Unexpectedly, Fried had already noticed it and had already buried the spell on her way. Miraja was trapped in the spot and could not move after running 2 steps. Mirajan begged, "Elfman can't fight anymore, let him go." Fried was neither sad nor happy, like a machine without emotions, and asked Elfman coldly, "Do you want to continue fighting?" Although half of his body was already cramped due to pain, Elfman still managed to squeeze out 2 words from his clenched teeth. "Continue." Fried heard this and stopped holding back as if he had received some kind of permission. As the color of his purple-black pupils deepened, the magic power he displayed also increased. The rapier danced quickly. Shock. Horror. Pain. A few more dark words were written, and Elfman's expression became more ferocious. But he used all his strength to support the ground with his right fist to prevent himself from falling down. Seeing his brother in so much pain that he couldn't even speak, Mirajan was already in tears. "Please, let's go back to the guild now. Don't hurt Elfman anymore." Fried looked indifferent, and didn't care about Mirajan's constant pleas for mercy. He didn't stop writing at all. The tip of the sword swung countless times. The dark words with greater magic power than before fell. Death. Fried's last 2 words were not loud, but they were particularly trembling in Mirajan's ears. Malaje's pupils instantly dilated. Death. But just as this dark text was about to fall, Fried suddenly felt a sudden storm in front of him, and subconsciously dodged backwards. But found a familiar figure with wings passing by in front of him, and directly carried away the struggling Elfman. Mobai. The words were engraved, but did not hurt Elfman, but were imprinted on Mobai's arm. However, Mobai had already used steel skin in advance during the flight. And the death magic engraved on it could not be said to have no harm, and the impact caused was not much different from being bitten by a mosquito. What the hell? Gua Sha. Mobai muttered softly. He carried Elfman all the way to the broken bridge not far away. Mobai was panting with exhaustion. The weight of this guy was almost equal to 3 or 4 urzes. When he saw Mobai's figure, Fried's face finally showed solemnity, no longer as calm as before. After all, this was an opponent that even Laxus had to take seriously. On the other hand, Mobai's expression at this moment was very strange. It didn't look like anger, but more like sympathy. For a long time, Mobai finally spoke with a tone full of pity. Why did you provoke her? What? Fried was puzzled for a moment, until he looked in the direction of Mobai's sight, and it turned out to be Mirajan who had just been trapped by his spell. Mirajan looked grim, and a huge gray-black magic circle appeared under his feet. Magic power continued to pour out, like a demon that devoured everything, and it was actually disintegrating and disappearing the spell bit by bit. What a terrifying magic power! Fried's face was horrified. He had only seen this kind of oppression on Laxus before. At this point, Mobai could only mourn for him for a minute. Alas, he is an old man in the guild after all. Don't you know Mirajan's other title a few years ago? S-class wizard, Demon Mirajan. The peak strength is not even weaker than the fairy queen Urza. It's just that due to some reasons, his personality changed drastically, from the original hot-tempered and bad fighting with Urza every day to the gentle and weak one now. The terrifying magic power in his body also fell asleep. Perhaps it was because she had just heard the word death. The image of Lysina leaving this world reappeared in Mirajan's subconscious. She had already lost Lysina, and could not lose Elfman, her only relative. Has the long-dormanted magic finally been stimulated? Mobai muttered to himself, and his eyes looked even more pathetic when he looked at Fried. Chapter 27. Receive Satan's Soul. As Milage's power gathered, his attire was no different from that of a demon, and he was completely different from the gentle waiter before. Fried's hand holding the rapier couldn't help but tremble. A fierce light flashed in Milage's eyes, and he stepped out with all his strength, rushing quickly, and arrived in front of Fried in an instant. Dark words wings. Flustered Fried finally wrote down the dark words that could be used for flying at the last moment, and flashed into the air. But the broken bridge where he was just now was not so lucky. He withstood the full force of Milage's Satan's soul and was smashed to pieces. Beads of sweat fell from his forehead. Only then did Fried realize what Mobai meant just now. That look was as if he was looking at a corpse. The smoke and dust dissipated. Mirajan locked her target on Fried, and the dark and mysterious Satan wings grew from her back, leaping into the air. The devilish claws kept biting like a hungry wolf, and the attack frequency was extremely intensive. Fried, who was not good at close combat, had to bite the bullet and manipulate the western sword to block, but it was full of flaws. Mirajan seized the opportunity and landed a palm on Fried's chest, knocking him down directly from midair. Fried's body fell down with a bang, and he was about to fall on the broken bridge. He immediately activated the Wings of Words and escaped. S-class wizard, Demon Mirajan. Her strength has far exceeded the previous plan. Fried practiced ritual magic, creating text rules through magic to restrict the opponent's actions. This also made him stubborn and rigid, and he even had to make a careful plan for everything he did. But when the plan was ruthlessly crushed, Fried obviously lost his previous calmness. Dark flow. Not far away, Milage had caught up without knowing when. As the purple-black magic circle appeared in his right hand, dozens of dark arms emerged from it and rushed towards Fried. If he didn't use his strongest killing move at this moment, it would be over. Dark words light bullet. Fried gritted his teeth and threw the western sword directly into the river beside him, interweaving his hands into a seal. The light bullet, which also contained huge magic power, emerged from it. Seeing that the dark arm in the rage was about to touch Fried, the light bullet suddenly exploded and blew him to pieces in an instant. Success. Seeing Milage's attack being resolved, Fried had a little hope of winning in his heart. However, it was soon crushed again. When the smoke and dust dissipated, Milage had already prepared for the next attack. Small black holes continued to condense between her palms, and the smell of danger spread. Soul Exterminator. Fried wanted to resist again, but found that the light bullet he had just used up all his strength had almost consumed all the magic power in his body. Despair surged into his heart. It turns out that I was just testing it. There was a major mistake in the plan. I have no chance of defeating her at all. Whether it is speed, attack, or frequency of attack. Boom. A powerful purple energy wave instantly burst out from the black hole. The terrifying demonic wind was raised, and the sky became dim. Although the battle area was close to the suburbs. At the same time, the generated waves were directly transmitted into the town of Magnolia, attracting many residents to stop and look over here. It seems to be dark. Could it be the group of wizards from fairy tale? I hope they won't demolish my house again this time. Faced with such a powerful offensive, resistance has no effect. As Fried was completely devoured by the Soul Destroyer, the wings of text behind him disappeared, and his vision blurred. Instantly, his whole body felt as if thousands of steel needles were piercing his nerves. Under the constant stimulation of pain, his consciousness became clearer. I'm afraid the pain now is about the same as the one I gave to Elfman just now. I didn't expect it to be attached to me now. Fried laughed at himself, completely lost his ability to fight, and fell to the ground. But the furious Melage didn't seem to intend to end it. She actually flashed in front of him and strangled his neck. The two fell rapidly together. The body fell completely. Fried lay flat on the ground, and all he could see was Melage's demon-like ferocious face. And her demon claws that were full of magic and ready to greet him at any time. Is it over? Fried closed his eyes peacefully. He was ready to leave this world. But more than 10 seconds passed. The imagined heavy blow did not come. Fried opened his eyes with difficulty. Mirajan's claws, which were filled with magic power, were still suspended in the air, but the hatred in his pupils was it gradually dissipated, until half a minute later, the arm fell down naturally and powerlessly. Fried was puzzled. What does this mean? Arrogance from the victor. Miraja did not answer. A flash of light passed. The terrifying Satan costume had disappeared. The one who appeared in sight was still the waitress of the guild, Miraja, who was wearing a pink dress. Miraja knelt beside her, and it was obvious that the battle just now had consumed her. After a while, Miraja had tears in her eyes and said slowly, "After all, we are still partners of the same guild. I just want to live happily in the guild and don't want to fight anymore." Not far away, Mobai, who was still supporting Elfman, had a panoramic view of everything. Mobai asked himself, facing the people of the same fairy tale guild, he would not kill them. But if his relatives who depended on each other were tortured like that, he would have to beat up Fried to vent his anger. Mira is still too kind. While Mobai was sighing, Elfman beside him suddenly roared. Sister is a man. Mobai's face was full of black lines. Shut up. If it weren't for Elfman being seriously injured, I really wanted to slap him like I usually do in the guild. For a long time, the magic fluctuations on Myra's body finally subsided. Looking up, Elfman was also limping towards him slowly with the support of Mobai. The big stone in Myra's heart fell to the ground, revealing a pale smile. Thank you, Mobai. Mobai waved his hand. He cast his eyes on Fried, who fell to the ground. At this moment, Fried was using his last strength to pull out the magic props and then launch them into the air. Fireworks burst. Recalling the similar behavior of Bigasro before. Mobai seemed to understand the intention. Is this a signal after the defeat? In this case, Alba Green is the only one left among the Thunder Gods. Let's leave it to the rest of the guild. As for Laxus, don't let him wait any longer. There's still more than 2 hours left, so it's definitely in time. Chapter 28. Magnolia, Town. Kaludia Cathedral. Laxus sat alone on the stone steps in front of the door, looking at the flares blooming in the sky again, his brows furious. It's only been an hour, and 2 of the Thunder Gods have lost their combat effectiveness. Who will be the remaining one? Fried. The breeze blew. Fried was defeated by Mirajan after awakening her magic power. The remaining one is Alba Green. The indifferent voice floated into Laxus' ears. As a Thunder Dragon Slayer wizard, his hearing was equally sharp. But there was nothing in front of him. After a long time, a thin figure slowly appeared from a distance. Laxus watched silently until the man stopped in front of him, and then he spoke grimly. Mobai, you are still standing on the opposite side of me. The person who came was Mobai. Stop now, everyone will think you are just joking. It's too late. Laxus raised his head, his eyes full of resentment, and then turned into a bolt of lightning and rushed towards Mobai. Storm Dragon Wings. When the heavy fistful of lightning fell, Mobai summoned the Storm Dragon Wings and activated the Thunder Dragon Slayer magic. The wind and thunder were linked together, and the speed was much faster than Laxus at the moment. As Mobai's figure passed by, his body half crouched in front of the church door, his palms pressed against the ground. Earth Dragon Collapse. The dry soil instantly cracked, like an ugly scar, and rushed straight to Laxus. Don't use this trick. Laxus snorted coldly, as if mocking Mobai's skills for being too weak. Standing firmly in the bow step, he actually ignored the broken ground and recontrolled the lightning to launch a fierce attack. Thunder Dragon's Collapse Fist. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. Unlike before, in order to understand Laxus's strength, Mobai chose to fight him head-on. It must be said that as one of the 5 S-class wizards of fairy tale, Laxus's strength is indeed not to be underestimated. The power of this punch is 1 level stronger than that of Natsu before. I am the strongest in the guild, and I have surpassed the old man. Do you think you can defeat me? Laxus roared, his bloodshot eyes flashing fiercely, which was chilling. If the neighbors' children saw his hideous face, they would probably cry on the spot. Boom! Another violent thunder strike, hitting the vital point, but Mobai noticed it again, dodged in the air in time, and took advantage of the momentum to dive. Thunder Dragon Fang TNG. Fire Dragon's Brilliant Flame. In a flash, Laxus had fought with Mobai for dozens of rounds. The speed of both sides' bursts and the frequency of their attacks were also a huge consumption of magic power. Seize the opportunity. Laxus finally got out of the entanglement and retreated to the center of the church, breathing heavily. The sound of slow footsteps came. Mobai walked in calmly, looked at Laxus's dilemma and said, "As both are Thunder Dragon Slayers, what is your weakness? I think we should all know it." As early as when he was watching anime before, Mobai had studied all of Laxus's battles. In the end, he found the real reason why he was so strong. Similar to the first-generation version of Ray and Seer, Laxus, who uses lightning magic, is ahead of other wizards in terms of attack power and speed. But his other abilities are slightly fragile. Although the explosive power is extremely strong in a short period of time, once the battle line is extended and falls into a protracted battle, the endurance of magic power is a big problem. After becoming a Thunder Attribute Dragon Slayer wizard, Mobai is more convinced of this. However, since Mobai himself has 7 other attributes, as long as he does not rely too much on the speed and burst of lightning in the battle, he can avoid the lack of endurance. In the scattered church, the roof had long been overturned by the magic collision just now. In the center, Laxus was still thinking about finding Mobai's weakness. A subtle magic fluctuation suddenly came from above his head. Although the movement was small, as a Dragon Slayer wizard, these naturally could not escape his perception. In the sky, fireworks bloomed. Everything was in sight, bringing Laxus the final despair. Magic Signal Flare, the third one. Mobai also looked up, with a hint of relief on his face. It seems that Alba Green has also failed. The Thunder Gods were completely wiped out. How could this happen? Laxus recalled the scene of 3 flares bursting, and then checked the magic power in his body that was about to run out. Suddenly, he felt that the situation was hopeless. "Do you want to continue fighting?" Mobai asked tentatively. Silence. Laxus did not answer. His head still staring blankly, as if he hadn't heard it. After a moment. Then he turned, his eyes filled with endless hatred to Mobai. "If it weren't for the old man who brought you back to the guild out of thin air, I would have been the new president of Fairy Tale now." Laxus, who was overwhelmed by anger, was a little unbalanced. After venting, under Mobai's quiet gaze, Laxus once again activated his magic power. But unlike before, there was no trace of lightning on his body. Mobai frowned. Want to use that trick? Closing his eyes lightly, Laxus' palm slowly condensed, and a ball of white light emerged, flickering slowly. The individual was quite small and delicate, but mixed with terrifying magic that had never been seen before. Laxus suddenly opened his eyes and infused all his magic power into it. The light ball instantly enlarged, and the energy became more unstable, as if it could explode at any time. Fairy's Law. Fairy's Law, as a powerful super magic, is known as one of the three major magics of Fairy Tale along with Fairy Ball and Fairy Shine. Once activated, it will cause a devastating blow to all enemies within the range. Earlier, Makarov used Fairy's Law to defeat Joseph, the leader of the Phantom Ruler, who was also one of the 10 Holy Wizards. Laxus' arms trembled slightly. He was too involved in the previous battle, so much magic power was poured into it. At this moment, even the Fairy's Law magic was a bit difficult to activate. The light shone unsteadily. Finally, it enveloped the entire Kaludia Cathedral. It's a pity that the range of the spell is only enough for you, Mobai. As a newcomer who has just joined the guild, this may be a bit cruel to you, but this is the fairy tale I want, a guild with only strong people. At the same time, outside the church, Urza, who had just defeated Alba Green, was still looking for Laxus's trace. Just as they were walking near the church, they suddenly sensed a strong magical power. This fluctuation is the law of the fairies. An ominous premonition came to their mind. Urza rushed into the church in panic, but found it was too late. Laxus finished chanting the law of the fairies. Mobai was still in a daze. The magic was about to explode. Mobai, get out of the church quickly. Huh, big sister. Mobai's face showed no panic for the impending destructive blow. There was even some surprise to see Urza unexpectedly. Laxus, who was about to cast magic, naturally did not give the two a chance to discuss, and instantly detonated the magic in his hand. The white light enveloped everything, as if placing the entire church in heaven. It's too late. Perhaps it was an instinctive reaction. At the moment when the law of the fairies was released, Urza rushed forward without hesitation and blocked in front of Mobai. Although it was too late to get him out safely. But at least he was protected under the armor. The Law of the Goblins. Chapter 29. The light faded. The magic power gradually disappeared in the air. Urza regained her vision. She looked down. The armor was not damaged at all. Mobai, who was protected behind him, rubbed his sleepy eyes at this moment, as if the terrifying magic just now had never been released. We are all okay. Of course we are fine. Mobai smiled bitterly and reached out to gently smooth Urza's crimson bangs. But to be honest, big sister, your first reaction was to protect me behind you. I am very touched. On the other hand, Laxus, who was opposite the two, was shocked and puzzled. What happened? How could it be? I have clearly activated the fairy law and my magic power has indeed been consumed. Why? Urza came back to her senses. The scene of the war with the Phantom Ruler emerged in her mind. Makarov, also one of the 10 holy mages, successfully defeated Joseph with the fairy law. Urza explained, Laxus, I heard the president mention something about the super magic fairy law. Although this magic is powerful, it will only work on the enemies that the caster truly identifies in his heart. In your heart, you may not regard us as enemies. Laxus roared wildly, unable to accept the facts, and shouted. Impossible. All those who hinder me from becoming the president of Fairy Tale are enemies. Mobai added lightly, but none of us was injured. You can deceive your body, but you can't deceive your heart and magic. Laxus suddenly raised his head, staring at Mobai and Urza, who still had 50% to 60% combat ability, and his whole face became twitching. His last trump card has been used. The overall situation is doomed. Laxus has thought of countless endings, whether success or failure. He even planned to launch the fairy law on the entire town of Magnolia and completely eliminate those who disobeyed him once he was in a desperate situation. But he never expected that it would end like this. How could this happen? With endless reluctance and a body exhausted of magic power, Laxus finally fell straight down. Lost consciousness. Mobai also completed the private commission that Makarov had given him before. I remember that during the original Civil War, Mistgang would also come back to fight Laxus. Maybe it's too early, I haven't seen him yet. Due to the spells that Fried had arranged in advance, the guild's civil war did not cause any harm to the residents of Magnolia. As for the destroyed buildings, Makarov also compensated in full as usual. After discussion, the Harvest Festival was postponed for 1 day. And the Fairy Tale Guild civil war was finally settled in 80 minutes. Because the battles were fought so quickly, many people were informed that the civil war was over before they even saw the shadow of the Thunder Gods. Afterwards, Laxus and the Thunder Gods were placed in a separate ward to recover. Until they were able to get out of bed and move around normally, Makarov found them and announced the expulsion order for Laxus and the warning for the 3 Thunder Gods. Laxus himself did not raise any objections. The 3 Thunder Gods thought they would be the same as Laxus, but they only received a warning. Fried wanted to leave together, but was stopped by Laxus. I don't have any feelings for this guild. You are different, stay here. I don't want to see a weak Thunder God when we meet again. Even the parting is the same. Laxus always maintains that aloof look and embarks on the next journey alone. After leaving the guild alone. Near the suburbs. In the afterglow, Laxus suddenly saw a figure walking in the distance. The breath was particularly familiar, but he couldn't see who it was because of the setting sun. The man seemed to wave at him and threw something. Laxus raised his arm and caught it steadily. It was a can of drink. As the figure trotted over, his face finally became clear. And when he recognized him, Laxus was quite surprised. Mobai. Mobai smiled, walked up and punched Laxus. Opened another can of drink in his hand, sat down leisurely, and asked casually, "Where are you going?" Practice. The specific location has not been determined. I used to be busy with various commissions every day, and now I finally have enough time to improve my magic power. Laxus looked into the distance, his eyes full of desire for the future. Glancing at Mobai next to him, Laxus' eyes flashed again. He showed some fighting spirit. Next time we meet, I won't lose to you again. Mobai smiled. Okay, I'm looking forward to it. They chatted casually. Until the drinks were finished and the sky darkened. The sun was about to set. Laxus tidied his black coat again, and before getting up, he reminded Mobai. Remember to pay more attention to a guild called Raventail. They have been planning in secret and may attack you at any time. Raventail. Mobai was not unfamiliar with this name. The one who created Raventail was none other than Ivan, the son of Makarov, the father of Laxus, and one of the strongest wizards of Fairy Tale. Because he had done something that hurt his fellow guild members, Makarov expelled him from Fairy Tale directly. Since then, Ivan has held a grudge and founded the Dark Guild Raven's Tail, accumulating strength for revenge. Ivan even planted Gajil as a spy to pass on unfavorable information about Fairy Tale. However, he didn't know that Gajil had been turned into a double agent from the beginning, and all the information passed to him was wrong. Mobai nodded seriously and said, I understand, I will be careful. One more thing. Facing Laxus's hesitation, Mobai tilted his head and couldn't help teasing. I don't usually see you like this. Why are you so nagging when you are leaving? After hearing this, Laxus uttered the last words in his heart. I don't belong to Fairy Tale anymore. I may not appear again for quite a long time in the future. Take good care of the old man for me. As expected. Before leaving, the thing he couldn't let go of the most was the old man who quarreled with him every day. However, Mobai didn't want this farewell to be so sad and regretful, and responded half-jokingly. Don't be so pessimistic. If I become the president one day, the first thing I will do is to call you back. Laxus laughed and scolded, turned around and walked towards the horizon, waving goodbye behind him. The sunset stretched his shadow very long. Hey, there will be a magic parade on the streets of Magnolia in the evening, remember to watch it before leaving. Chapter 30. It was midnight. After the magical parade around Magnolia, the Harvest Festival seemed to be coming to an end. However, in the Fairy Tale Guild, the grand dinner had just begun. Walking out of the cheering crowd and looking at the rich dishes on the table, Mobai just wanted to eat. Just as he was about to reach out for the cake in front of him, Mobai suddenly felt someone grab his shoulder. And then a strong smell of alcohol came over. Don't go, little Mobai, come and have a drink with your sister Tilda. Kana. After seeing the other person's face clearly, Mobai shuddered. Kana, the famous female alcoholic in the guild, was the first among the young wizards to join Fairy Tale. She usually dresses quite revealingly, and she doesn't hesitate to show off her proud figure. But perhaps because she is addicted to alcohol, she drinks almost all the time except when she is working, and she doesn't even have a rumored boyfriend until now. Kana has a half-drunk smile on her lips. As she spoke, she walked directly in front of Mobai, hugged his neck and leaned into her arms. Before Mobai could react, he felt his eyes go black and his vision disappeared. His face seemed to be supported by two soft things. The smell of wine mixed with warm body fragrance entered his nose. Until he saw that he was choked. Kana let go with a satisfied look on her face, and then took the wine glass from the side. Speaking of which, you saved me when I participated in the beauty pageant before, and I haven't had time to thank you. Tilda, this glass of wine is my toast to you. Mobai's face wrinkled into a bitter gourd. Early before he crossed over, his alcohol tolerance was very poor. He would fall down after one or two glasses, and he could never stand the spicy taste. That's why he even trembled when he saw Kana. At a banquet, the most fearful thing is to be forced to drink by this drunkard. I can't drink. At this point, Mobai had to admit it honestly. What, do you have to feed me? Kana insisted. No. Seeing Kana holding the wine glass closer and closer to his face, Mobai looked around and sent a look of help to Mirajan, who was passing by. Mirajan also understood, walked up and patted Kana's shoulder gently. Stop it, Kana. Mobai was busy preparing for the magic parade today, and didn't eat much all day. Unexpectedly, Kana became more excited when she heard it. That's perfect. Drinking can fill your stomach. Tilda, come on, drink it. Just this one glass. Seeing the wine glass pushed in front of him, Mobai simply gritted his teeth after refusing again and again. It's better to have a short pain than a long pain, just this one glass. Thinking of this, Mobai no longer hesitated, took the wine glass and drank it all. The strong liquor entered his mouth, but he did not feel the rich and mellow fragrance that others had said, only the unbearable spiciness. Mobai forced himself to swallow it, and the spiciness spread from his mouth to his throat and then to his stomach. Just when he thought it was over, his vision suddenly blurred, his feet slipped, and he almost fell down. Mobai realized that something was wrong. What did you give me to drink? Water of life. The purity is about 96%. Mobai felt dizzy and his cheeks were particularly hot. If it weren't for Mirajan and Kana supporting him, he would have to lie down directly. I'm sorry, I didn't expect. You really can't drink any alcohol. After taking a sip of the sobering tea brought by Mirajan, Mobai glanced at Kana, who was apologizing with a bad temper. But, actually, I have something else to discuss with you tonight. Kana seemed a little embarrassed. What is it? Mobai asked. I was not very satisfied with the stone sculpture before. This time, let's take a closer look. Who is bigger, me or Urza? Kana said. She put one hand on the shoulder strap and untied it as if no one was around. Mobai almost spit out a mouthful of hot tea. Miraja was also shocked. This is too open. As Kana's fingers twisted, her plump upper body trembled slightly. Mobai opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he didn't utter a word. The Western Hemisphere was about to see the light of day again. Kana suddenly stopped moving and stared at Mobai, who looked confused. A smug look suddenly appeared in her eyes, and she even suddenly freed a hand to pinch Mobai's red face. Another drunken laugh. "I'm just teasing you, ha 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 ha." Mobai touched his nose in dismay. Although he had a glimmer of hope, this result was already expected. "No, it was a close call. I lost control just now, and Mo Xiaobai under his crotch almost fell out. I must have drunk too much." Mobai rubbed his temple to comfort himself. At the same time, in the open space not far away, Makarov and Natsu and others seemed to have a dispute, and the voices were not small. "Why do you want to drive Laxus away? Even if they fight, they are still partners, right? I have said it many times, Natsu. Although Laxus is my grandson, he has done something that hurt his companions and must leave the guild. But enough. Let's stop here." A questioning voice also came from behind Mobai. "Laxus was expelled from the guild. What do you think? Perhaps leaving the guild for a short period of time will help Laxus's training. He has lived under the halo since he was a child, and has always longed for a truly objective evaluation. At least now he can concentrate on improving his strength without any scruples. Besides, even if he leaves Fairy Tale, the president and everyone in the guild still care about Laxus, right?" Perhaps it was the paralyzing effect of alcohol. It was not until these words were finished that Mobai realized who he had just talked to. "Big sister, when did you come here?" Aluza smiled and said, "The civil war and the celebration are over. Now, it's time to discuss the stone sculpture." Mobai was stunned. How could she still remember this? Urza immediately said, "Where did you buy the stone sculpture? I think the workmanship is good, and I also want to customize one." Mobai was relieved. "It's in the north of the city, there's a shop run by the stone wizard." "I thought Urza was here to cause trouble." After getting the answer she wanted, she briefly asked about Mobai's condition after drinking, and after confirming that he was fine. Urza turned around and was about to leave, but suddenly seemed to remember something. "Also, don't call me big sister in the future." Actually, I don't always call you that, just occasionally." "Then what should I call you in the future?" "Queen." Urza turned around and smiled, but did not answer, and walked straight to Makarov who was still arguing. Leaving Mobai alone in a daze. "So, what should I call her in the future?" A few days later, in a shop in the north of the city. "Miss, the double stone sculpture is expensive. Are you sure you want to customize it?" "Sure. For the shape, please make it according to this photo." "Oh, if I remember correctly, these should be the two people in the Tower of Destruction Paradise. I paid attention to that issue of Wizard Weekly. Looking at the posture of them hugging each other, maybe they are a couple." "No, I don't know. For the proportion of the stone sculpture, let's imitate the size of a real person." "No problem. Any other requirements?" "Also, please pack it tightly, I don't want others to see it. In addition, please keep the fact that I have been here a secret from anyone." Chapter 31. Inside the villa. Mobai sat cross-legged on the bed, gradually emptying his mind. His thoughts slowly jumped into the consciousness space. In the vast darkness, only 8 dragon-slaying crystals of different colors emitted a little light. Among the 8 crystals, the 3 energies of fire, thunder and storm were the most powerful, which happened to be the 3 attributes that were driven to release the Dragon Slayer secret. Mobai's brows were more solemn, and he quietly activated his magic power to feel the resonance between the crystals. Since the first fight with Jelal, the Dragon Slayer secret has only 3 powers to activate, but this is far from enough. Although the explosive power of the combination of fire, electricity and wind is already quite amazing, even the 10 great wizards of the Holy Land cannot easily take it. Mobai is still a little dissatisfied. Why not try it today and see how much the Dragon Slayer secret can perform when fighting at home? The majestic magic power emerges. Mobai focused on the row of crystals in front of him. The 3 colors of fire, electricity and wind still bloomed first, and the other 5 crystals followed closely, shining brightly, and the brightness was obviously improved. Mobai was delighted and was about to increase the magic power infusion. But the 5 crystals dimmed at this moment and immediately returned to their original state. It still doesn't work. Mobai frowned slightly. After a brief regret, he began to calmly analyze the reasons. Originally, the dragon-slaying crystals were all bright, but soon dimmed again. It seems that there is a lack of some specific elemental power as a stimulus. For example, if the next battle is in the ocean, maybe we can use the water elemental power there to activate the 4th dragon-slaying crystal. By then, the power of the dragon-slaying secret should be able to be improved. He made a decision secretly in his heart. Mobai finally left the consciousness space and opened his eyes, only to find that the sun was very high. He looked up at the clock and it was already past 10 in the morning. When he first entered the consciousness space, it was still dark outside. Time was fast enough. Mobai smacked his lips helplessly. At this time, I guess Urza and the others have already left to do the commission. It seems that I can't catch up. As early as when Urza first invited him to join the team. Mobai had already told everyone that his time was often not very stable. If he was late for work for too long, others didn't have to worry. They could just go to do the commission without waiting. After jumping off the bed, Mobai put on his clothes casually, washed up briefly, picked up the storm dragon wings and went straight to the guild. Kicked open the door that was swaying in the breeze. Mobai lazily walked through the hall and went straight to the front desk to sit down. Mira, is there anything to eat? I'm so hungry, Tilda. Mobai. Miraji turned around. At this time, she was still wearing the pink dress, and her beautiful eyes seemed to be filled with spring water. She asked softly. Arusa and Natsu left for work early in the morning. Didn't you go with them? Mobai scratched the back of his head. I stayed in bed late. Is there any food? I didn't eat anything this morning. Yes, I'll get it for you, Tilda. Miraje smiled bitterly. Then he took a plate of cake that Mobai often ate from the kitchen. Mobai didn't say too much politely. He took a bite of it in his hand, and his mouth was full of cream. Mira is still good. By the way, there are so few people in the guild today, it's never so quiet. Mira thought and said, maybe it's because it's the end of the month. Many of the tasks that have been accumulated but not completed before have been paid more or less by the clients. I see. By the way, the president is not here either. Oh, when Gajil went to execute the commission yesterday, he accidentally blew up more than 50 ships docked at Harjan port. The president has been invited to have tea by the council. Okay, this is very fairy tale. While the two were talking. Chirp. A blue mechanical bird suddenly flew into the hall, making a crisp chirping sound. Circling around. Finally, it landed on the counter. There was a yellow paper rolled up on the bird's back. After coming to the Fairy Tale Guild, Mobai has seen this bird several times. A mechanical gadget driven by magic, it travels around villages and towns as a messenger, and can also deliver some commissions to nearby guilds. A new mission. Miraje frowned slightly. A commission was sent at this time. Could it be an urgent task? He slowly unfolded the yellow paper. At this time, Mobai was still immersed in the deliciousness of the cake, chewing it with big mouthfuls. But the moment he raised his head subconsciously, Mobai realized that Miraje's originally beautiful her face suddenly lost its color, and her smile disappeared without a trace. Even her hands, which were tightly holding the commission form, could not stop shaking, as if she was extremely frightened. What's going on? Mobai quickly wiped his mouth, stood up and approached Mirajan, and read the words on the commission form. S-level mission, urgent, Grak village was invaded by demons, requesting wizard support. The commission content stopped abruptly, and there was no further information. The handwriting was extremely sloppy. It was even delivered hurriedly by the mechanical bird without specifying the requirements and rewards. According to the regulations of the council, this kind of commission is an invalid task and cannot be accepted by guild members normally, but Muradjan only said half of it and did not dare to continue. From the description, it doesn't seem like a prank, Mobai said in a deep voice. He could also roughly imagine the circumstances under which this urgent commission was completed. Perhaps before he could finish writing the content, the client was discovered by the demon described in the task, and his life or death was unknown. Silence for a long time. Muradjan folded the commission form at a very fast speed and put it away. Suddenly, as if he had made up his mind, he said, "Mobai, I must go there immediately. Receive Satan's soul." The dark magic circle was activated. Muradjan had changed into the appearance of Satan, and the demon wings with black feathers on his back waved, and he flew directly out of the guild gate. "Wait a minute." Mobai didn't even react for a while, and shouted loudly while standing there. Sensed that something was wrong. Mobai also urged the dragon-slaying power in his body. The wings of the storm dragon suddenly appeared, and his figure also shot out violently. The door of the guild, which had been destroyed long ago, was completely smashed into slag. With the blessing of the power of wind and thunder. In midair, Mobai quickly caught up with Muradjan and stood in front of her. Muradjan was stunned and asked, Why did you follow me?" Mobai hit the nail on the head and asked in a deep voice. "What made you abandon your job as a waiter in the guild and go to that Grak village regardless of everything? Does this commission have anything to do with you?" Muradjan's figure stopped in midair and her head slowly lowered. Just when Mobai thought she was going to tell the truth. Unexpectedly, Muradjan's eyes suddenly turned red, and two bean-sized tears rolled down her cheeks. Now it was Mobai's turn to panic, and he hurriedly stepped forward. "Don't cry, you haven't left Magnolia yet, and if others see you, they will think I bullied you. I don't want to become the public enemy of all the men in the town. Wait until there is no one around before crying." Muradjan still whispered in a low voice. After a while of thinking, he finally told the truth. "Grak village is my hometown." Mobai was stunned. Hometown. Mobai knew a little about Muradjan's past. Muradjan, Elfman and Lysina had lived together since childhood in an unknown village. In order to drive away the demon that was haunting the church in the village, Muradjan went alone to expel it, but was accidentally possessed by it. The whole arm became black and purple and twisted, exactly the same as the demon's arm. "I thought I could live a stable life after driving away the demon." But the arrogant villagers did not regard Muradjan as a hero at all. Instead, they discriminated against and hated her because of her mutated arm, and even regarded her as an ominous monster. The three children, who were originally alone and helpless, suffered humiliation and were shouted at by everyone. Under the leadership of the eldest sister Muradjan, they were forced to leave their hometown until they arrived at the Fairy Tale Guild. After hearing Makarov's story, Muradjan realized that the so-called demon possession was just a kind of receiving magic. After choosing to stay in the Fairy Tale Guild, the three of them finally learned to receive magic together. Muradjan was the demon soul, Elfman was the beast soul, and Lysina was the animal soul. As for their hometown, Grak village, which was gradually blurred in their memories, they never went back. Mobai couldn't comment on this commission. "It's really ironic. Those unruly people once drove away Mira, who expelled the demons, and now they have problems, and they actually go to Myra's guild for help." However, considering that the commission was sent out hastily without being completed when the demons invaded, Mobai guessed that perhaps there would be no living people left in the entire Grak village. And those villagers were probably all killed by the demons. This time, the mission is to help Mira protect the land of her hometown. Let those pathetic villagers fend for themselves. Thinking of this, Mobai lightly with a sigh, he took Muradjan's arm and whispered, "Cancel the receiving magic first, I'll take you there." After all, the magic power consumption of Satan's soul is too serious. When Mirajan really flies to the devil, the magic power will probably be exhausted, and he can only go there to deliver food. Thank you. Chapter 32. The distance between Grak village and Magnolia was much farther than Mobai had imagined. Almost without stopping. Wait until night fell completely. Then they barely approached the jungle outside Grak village. As if smelling something, Mobai suddenly said seriously, Mira. Be prepared. What? The 5 senses of a dragon slayer are more acute than those of an ordinary person. The further I go, the more I smell the smell of burning fireworks. Seeing that Mirajan did not respond, Mobai also kept silent and continued to drive the storm dragon wings forward. As the two of them kept getting closer. Finally stopped on a hill. Grak village was in front of them. The terrain here is high, and you can just see the whole picture of the village. But after just one look, Mirajan's pupils suddenly dilated, and her eyes showed fear. Hands covered half of her face, shaking constantly. Mobai had no expression on his face. The village that should have appeared in front of the two of them had turned into a sea of fire. After a while, in the clearing in the jungle, next to the fire, Mirahe and Mobai sat opposite each other, and the atmosphere was frighteningly quiet. 20 minutes ago, the two of them went to Grak village. Apart from the flames rising to the sky and the corpses everywhere, no survivors were found. Since then, Mirahe has been silent until now. The fragrant and greasy grilled fish was ignored and buried in the flames until it was roasted into charcoal and emitted a pungent smell of burnt. Mobai had to throw it away. Looking at the campfire in a daze for a while. Seeing that Mirahe's expression had eased, Mobai finally couldn't help but asked. Mira, if I remember correctly, it was these villagers who drove you away out of revenge. Even so, do you still miss this place? Mirahe smiled bitterly. But this is my hometown after all. Elfman, Lysina and I have lived on this land since we were young. By the way, you have just joined the guild, so you may not know Lysina. She is a very lovely girl, but she has left us. Every time he talked about Lysina, Mirajan's tone was always mixed with indelible sadness. And how could Mobai not know Lysina? The 3 sisters encountered a very powerful beast while carrying out the commission. Elfman forcibly took it, but was counterattacked and lost control of his body. Lysina firmly believed that she could wake up her brother, but the irrational Elfman was already bloodthirsty and attacked Lysina directly. When Mirajan rushed to the wounded Lysina, he found that her body was slowly turning into nothingness. Since that incident, Malaje's temperament has changed drastically, from the violent bad girl to the gentle and considerate one now, and the terrifying magic in her body has fallen asleep. Elfman is no longer as weak as he was in his childhood. They all thought that their sister Lysina was dead, but they could not figure out why her body turned into nothingness at the last moment of her life. Mobai naturally knew that Lysina was still alive, but was just sucked into a parallel time and space. But it is difficult to explain now. Mobai did not mention much, but just reached out to wipe the tears from Malaje's eyes. Lysina just went to another world. She must not want to see you sad. Take a rest, we will look for the traces of the devil tomorrow morning. This homeland of love is not their turn to dominate here. As Mobai said, he suddenly felt a slight pressure on his shoulders. At the beginning of the film, Malaje had leaned on him without knowing when. Falling in a light sleep under the interweaving of pain and exhaustion, as obedient as a baby. Mobai couldn't help but smile bitterly, carefully took off his coat and covered Malaje's back. I have to keep watch again tonight. At dawn. With the powerful perception of Mobai the Dragon Slayer, he soon found the traces of the demon's actions. Following the smell, he quickly stepped into a dense forest. The terrain here is complicated, beware of ambushes and protect yourself. Cut off the thorns in front of him, and Mobai warned behind him. I understand. As the smell slowly deepened, the two finally walked into the spacious forest, and the rustling sound of leaves rubbing against each other came into their ears from time to time. It's just in front. Push aside the last bush. What came into view was a tall stone building. In the center of the building, there was a scarlet flag with a strange pattern of a twisted animal claw engraved on it. They were naturally very familiar with this architectural style. Guild. Mobai and Mirajan looked at each other in surprise. Did we go the wrong way? And how could there be a guild in such a remote place? Mobai scratched his head, wondering if there was something wrong with his nose, while Mirajan stared at the guild emblem and fell into deep thought. I seem to have heard about this emblem from the editor of Wizard Weekly. It seems to be a dark wizard guild with very strange whereabouts, specializing in robbing houses. Since it is a dark guild, let's go in and sit down. Maybe there are clues about the devil inside. While answering, Mobai kicked the iron door with a flying foot, with several subtle cracking sounds coming from both sides. The door fell forward 90 degrees, raising dust. The quality is much worse than the door of the Fairy Tale Guild. Bang! As the iron door fell to the ground, Mobai led Mirajan into it as if nothing had happened. Instantly attracted dozens of pairs of eyes in the hall. Looking around, most of these people were carrying swords, spears and halberds, and they looked ferocious. Seeing Mobai and Milaji enter, they instantly clenched their weapons and stood up vigilantly. The fat man in the lead had a face full of flesh, and immediately pointed the blade in his hand at Mobai, and asked sternly, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the evil spirit temple? I heard that there is a demon nearby, and I want to find out if there are any clues about it." Mobai replied calmly. Uproar. The fat man frowned and squinted his eyes to look at Mobai. Maybe he was shocked by the sudden destruction of the iron gate just now. He realized that there were only two people on the opposite side. A thin boy, and a quiet girl who could not fight at first glance. Looking at the dozens of wizards in his own guild in the hall, he couldn't help but sneer. Where did this young man come from? What's wrong? Did you get lost while taking your wife out for a wild fight to find excitement? The fat man had a lewd smile on his face, and his eyes kept scanning Malaya's slender figure. Then all the gangsters in the hall burst into laughter. Hee hee, this kid knows that there are no women in the evil spirit temple, so he came to honor us. She seems to be Malaya, the cover girl of Wizard Weekly. This is a blessing for brothers. Wait, I remember Malaya is an S-class wizard. Can we beat them? What are you afraid of? No matter how strong Malaya is, I haven't heard of her doing anything in these years. She is probably a useless person with a false reputation. We have more than 80 people, are we afraid of a half-useless S-class wizard? There was a lot of noise. The gangsters seemed to have completely forgotten the scene when Mobai kicked the door. Mobai was too lazy to bother with this bunch of useless people. The fat man looked so miserable that he looked like a short-lived ghost. He probably wouldn't even survive one episode. Just as he was about to activate the dragon-killing magic in his body, the fat man spoke again. No matter how you found this place. Since you are here, stay and become a sacrifice to Aniselan. Mobai's eyes lit up immediately. Aniselan, could it be the name of that demon? Hearing this, Malaje nodded slightly. Maybe the demon is hiding in this dark guild. Chapter 33. Receive Satan's Soul. As a dark magic circle appeared under Mirajan, the power of the devil emerged, and she instantly turned into Satan. The minions who had been drooling over her beauty and rushed forward to cast magic attacks were stunned when they saw Mirajan, who looked like a completely different person. You call this a half-wasted wizard? Dark Flow raised his hand. Countless black claws appeared and swept away, and in the eyes of the minions, it was like seeing a ghost. When they turned around and wanted to escape, it was too late. Screams resounded throughout the hall of the Evil Spirit Temple Guild. The remaining people all looked pale, and there was only endless fear in their eyes when they looked at Mirajan. In the past, they only did some robbery and bullying of ordinary people who could not use magic. This time was one of the few times they fought with wizards. I thought I could still take advantage of the numbers, but I didn't expect to meet an S-class wizard and hit a wall. A trace of horror flashed across the fat man's fat face. But he noticed Mobai, who hadn't made a move yet. The bad water in his stomach immediately reacted. Catch that kid. Use him as a hostage to threaten Mirajan to surrender. With an order, the other magic minions around seemed to see hope, and they surrounded Mobai with fierce looks and kept approaching. You're unlucky, kid. Bullying muggles who can't do magic is what they are best at. The fat man muttered something, and a magic circle appeared in his left hand without a knife, followed by dozens of iron swords, spears, swords and halberds, which continued to grow larger. No different from the weapons in the hands of the minions. This slightly aroused Mobai's interest. Iron modeling magic. You're quite knowledgeable, kid. But this sword doesn't have eyes, be careful to be chopped into pieces. With the fat man's shout, more than a dozen iron weapons were launched at the same time, determined to pierce Mobai into a hornet's nest. This attack also attracted Milaji's attention. Although he knew Mobai's strength, he still glanced over here with some worry. Mobai still stood there, calm and composed. Just when the minions thought he was still pretending to be calm, a flash of lightning suddenly flashed in front of his eyes, and he subconsciously covered his eyes. After a few seconds, when he regained his vision, the minions were shocked to find that all the iron weapons just now were actually caught by Mobai in his hands. Mobai was not hurt at all. What shocked them even more was that the iron that was originally attached with magic. But in Mobai's hands, it was like a snack, and was folded repeatedly. And then stuffed into his mouth as if nothing had happened. He ate all my magic. I know, big brother. This man is the strongest of the phantom rulers except for the president, Iron Dragon Gajil. Dragon Slayer Gajil. Mobai's heart. Ah, right. It's also because I haven't joined the Fairy Tale Guild for a long time, and I don't like to show off too much. These minions seem to have never heard of me. Forget it, since you say I'm Gajil, then I'll be Gajil for once. Mobai took a deep breath, refined the iron sheet he just swallowed into magic power, and gathered it in his throat. Iron Dragon's roar. The next moment, the violent energy turned into a silver-gray whirlwind and gushed out, mixed with the iron blades that were swallowed before. Like thousands of steel needles piercing, breaking the surrounding air, and all the minions approaching were swept into the storm. The fat man widened his eyes and looked around. The magicians who were just full of the room had almost no chance to fight before they were all wiped out by the two men in front of them. Only the three of them were left standing in the hall. The fat man's legs were shaking and cold sweat was pouring down his face. Then he looked at Mobai. Mobai had a bright and kind smile on his face. As if everything that happened just now had nothing to do with him. Let's talk. You should have noticed that I deliberately kept your life until now. The fat man's mouth was cold, his tongue was like a knot, and he couldn't squeeze out a word. Mobai didn't waste time talking to him, but still liked his rebellious and insulting look just now. The roots of the wood dragon are entangled. The huge vines broke out from under the fat man's body and quickly grew to the same level as the ceiling. Before the fat man could react, he was tightly bound in it. Almost squeezed out the oil. The fat man subconsciously tried to resist and wanted to summon the iron sword, but Mobai had already noticed it and clenched his fists lightly, and the vines became more entangled. The fat man let out a shrill howl. You have one last chance now. Tell me, where is the devil? I'll tell you. The fat man was already frightened by Mobai's terrifying strength, and immediately he nodded like a chick pecking at rice. The devil is called Aniselan, and he is the president of the Evil Spirit Temple. Mobai scolded coldly. Go on. Tell us everything you know about you and the devil. Yes, Master Gajil. We came from the southern kingdom and were captured by Aniselan, who forced us to rob the villages we passed by. Aniselan uses an extremely evil magic that absorbs human spiritual power as a source of energy. When his magic power reaches its peak, it is said that he can summon moving meteorites to attack, which can destroy everything in an instant. There is a small town called Grak village nearby. The people in the town were all cursed by Aniselan and died after all their spiritual power was absorbed. The fat man's voice stopped abruptly. Mobai looked up, but saw that his eyes were still wide open, but his body did not show any signs of struggle. He stepped forward to sniff his breath. Dead now. Mobai couldn't help but frown. And judging from the death, it didn't look like he was killed by himself due to external injuries. It looked more like a mental breakdown. Was he scared to death? Mobai was confused for a moment. Mobai, look at them. Mirajan suddenly exclaimed. Mobai looked around, but strangely found that the wizards on the ground were all still. Mirajan's face was also very puzzled. Although her attack just now was fierce, she was also sure that she would not completely kill those minions, but just lost their fighting consciousness. There's something strange. He briefly sensed an unusual breath slowly drifting out. Mobai suddenly looked up at the corridor on the second floor. At some point, a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes was standing there, looking down from above, taking everything in his eyes. His face was as dry as a dead tree, and he exuded an unpleasant smell. Seeing this, Mobai's sanity value dropped wildly. Ane Salong. The fat man just told me that Ane Salong would leave a curse mark in the body of a living person, and then drain their mental power to increase his own curse power. It seems that he killed everyone just now. Ane Salong licked the corners of his dry mouth, raised his chin and looked at Mobai and the others with a grin. As if he guessed their inner thoughts. Just a group of lowly slaves. The meaning of their existence is to find the best meat supplement for me. Since your combat ability is so weak, you might as well give full play to your final value, which can also be regarded as a contribution to the evil spirit temple. Chapter 34. The attack method used by demons is spells, and the energy in their bodies is called spell power, which is different from the magic of wizards. In the first contact, Mobai could not tell how good Aniselan was, and could only hide Mirajan behind him during the confrontation. To be able to defeat the wizards of the entire guild, it seems that the magic power in your bodies is not low. I wonder what your souls taste like. Aniselan said slowly, and his withered palms passed through the air. Reign of Chaos. After chanting, Mobai and Mirajan suddenly noticed the changes in the sky. The sky changed rapidly and the fluctuations were strange. The last time Mobai saw this scene was Jalal's celestial magic. And then, there were meteorites from outer space with green flames passing by, rushing straight to the bottom of the guild. Mobai immediately activated the wings of the storm dragon and took Mirajan to dodge vigilantly. Boom! The meteorite fell. As the temperature around him rose sharply, a chill came over him. Aniselan sneered, "Feel the flames of the devil from hell." Another spell was cast, and the 5 meteorites that fell to the ground seemed to have life and intelligence. Transformed into burning rock giants several meters high, and soon surrounded Mobai and Malaje. Aniselan grinned, and was about to enjoy this feast of killing. But he didn't realize that Mobai's mouth was also raised. In the encirclement. Looking around at the rock giants, Mobai couldn't suppress his joy. Rocks, flames, this is a professional match. As a dragon slayer, no matter how powerful Aniselan's spells are, they can only be a meal. Attack. Aniselan gave orders, and the nearest rock giant immediately swung his burning stone arm and smashed down at Mobai. Mobai quickly shouted, "Mira, find a safe place first. I have a way to deal with him. Be careful." Because of his trust in Mobai and the urgency of the situation, Mirajan did not hesitate. The moment the rock giant's heavy arm fell, Mirajan immediately burst out of the encirclement. Bang! The giant hit nothing. On the other hand, Mobai jumped directly, dodging the attack and landing directly on the arm of this behemoth. He bent down and opened his mouth to bite. He bit off a large piece of rock with green fire. Quick battle, I'm eating eat. As the body was destroyed, the overall flame on the back of the rock giant gradually dimmed. Huh. Aniselan was stunned. Although he was a demon who fed on human spiritual power, he was proud of his status and had never understood the various fancy magic used by humans. This was the first time he had seen such a strange fighting style of the Dragon Slayer. Mobai stuffed more and more food into his mouth faster and faster, without having time to taste it, just wanting to end the battle as soon as possible. He swallowed the rock giant in front of him whole. Mobai immediately felt a subtle change in magic power, as if his dragon-slaying power would also mutate accordingly. However, this feeling only lasted for a few seconds before it disappeared. The ideal energy surge did not appear. Not only that, but there was also an urge to vomit. This damn feeling, it was as if someone had fed him a mouthful of history. Mobai frowned, looking up at Aniselan with great displeasure, his tone slow and cold. The devil's fire and stone are so unpalatable, it really makes me angry. Aniselan's heart was full of rage. I didn't ask you to eat it. Madman, madman, is he really a human? But the current situation obviously didn't allow Aniselan to complain anymore. The next moment, he was horrified to find that Mobai's figure disappeared from the spot, and at the same time, violent lightning magic came from his side. Mobai's fists intertwined, and his pupils instantly enlarged with unstoppable power. Thunder Dragon Jaw. Mobai's attack was not dragged at all, and directly hit the top of Aniselan's head. His scream was even louder than the fat man who was entangled and bound by the roots just now. As Aniselan fell to the ground with serious injuries, the remaining 4 rock giants also lost control, and the flames on their bodies flashed briefly and then were extinguished. However, the battle was not over. Mobai could still sense that Aniselan, who was lying on his stomach pretending to be dead, could still faintly reveal the power of the curse. As expected of a demon, you have thick skin and flesh. But if you don't get up, I don't mind punching you on the head again. Aniselan was shocked when he heard this, and hurriedly sat up from the ground to keep a distance from Mobai, shouting at the top of his voice. Behind the evil spirit temple is the dark guild Hades Gate. You can't kill me. Hades Gate. A flash of lightning flashed through Mobai's mind. Hades Gate, one of the 3 strongest dark guilds, signed a non-interference agreement with the 6 demon generals and Demon Heart, and the 3 formed the Balam Alliance. In the original story of Fairy Tale, there were a lot of battles with these 3 dark guilds. Mobai thought from the bottom of his heart, Hades Gate is indeed a tricky thing. But if I remember correctly, they will take action after 7 years, right? Aniselan saw Mobai's hesitation and thought he was afraid of Hades Gate, and then threatened and tempted him. I guess you have heard of Hades Gate. There are powerful demons in the Book of Zirf. There is only one way to die if you are against them. I can see that you are a very strong wizard. As long as you join the Evil Spirit Temple and follow me in the future, I guarantee that you will have endless magic power sources for you to enjoy in the future, just like the hellfire that just devoured me. Mobai suddenly interrupted. I'm not interested in your hellfire that tastes worse than history. Aniselan was startled, and a bad premonition came to his mind. Mobai then said coldly, besides, sooner or later, the gate of Hades will be pushed through by us. It's a pity that you won't see that day. Wait. Endless fear appeared in Aniselan's eyes, and his dry lips opened, as if he wanted to say something else. Mobai's iron fist fell first, shutting him up completely. Aniselan's body slowly became transparent until it disappeared completely. This boss is easier to beat than the monsters. Among the demons, this should be considered a strong one. It's just that I was a little unlucky, and all the spells were eaten by me. Chapter 35. Seeing everything settled down. Mirajan also returned to Mobai and released the Satan soul. Mobai nodded slightly and was about to leave when a faint voice sounded in his ears. Mira, did you hear anything? Mirajan was confused. It seems to be a baby crying. It's right where Aniselan just came out. Holding Mirajan's arm, Mobai activated the storm dragon wings and ran straight to the second floor. Unlike the mess on the floor of the hall, Aniselin's room is in order. If you hadn't seen with your own eyes what kind of abstract guy he is, you might really think this is a gentleman's home. The crying sound came from the bed at the end, and Marajan finally heard it. The two got closer and found that it was actually a baby girl still in swaddling clothes. Iya Tilda. Seeing Mobai and Malaje, the baby girl stretched out her little hand and gestured something in the air, then she opened her mouth and started crying again. Perhaps out of instinct, Malaje directly held the baby girl in her arms and gently rocked her to try to coax her to sleep. Maybe this is also a child snatched from Grak village, but she didn't have time to be cursed to absorb her spiritual power. This child is also lucky and lucky. We can still find her after hiding from Aniselin. But why does she keep crying and can't be coaxed? Mobai looked her up and down and guessed, maybe she is hungry. Those people in the evil spirit temple are not careful enough to take care of babies. Maragi heard this and looked anxious and nervous. What should I do? I haven't taken care of such a young child for a long time. After all, the last time I took care of my little sister Lysina in her cradle was more than 10 years ago. Well. Mobai turned his gaze from the baby girl to the bulging curves of Malaje. Thinking. After a while, he suddenly said faintly. How about, you feed it? Marahe didn't react at first. What? Until she noticed Mobai's gaze, she understood what he meant. The warm cheeks were covered with red at a speed visible to the naked eye. How can I do such a thing? No, do you want to peek? Mobai immediately denied it. How could I have the idea of taking advantage of someone's misfortune? Besides, I saw yours when I saved you from Alba Green during the guild's civil war. Huh. Marahe seemed to have heard something about herself by accident, and her face turned red from her neck to her ears. Mobai quickly changed the subject. Ahem, this is not the point. How about this? You hold her for a while, I'll go to the kitchen to find something to eat. After the voice fell, Mobai immediately flashed to the back hall like the wind. Looking behind him, seeing that Milaji didn't catch up, Mobai breathed a sigh of relief. He began to count the remaining food from the broken counter. Onions, garlic, ketchup. Fingers swept through the messy pile of food one by one, until it passed the glass bottle filled with white liquid. Is there milk? Mobai was very happy. He took the milk and was about to go back to the hall, but suddenly remembered something. Then he unscrewed the bottle stopper and poured a sip into his mouth first. Baji baji. Fortunately, it hasn't gone bad. After quickly returning to the main hall. Under Milaji's feeding, the baby girl who drank all the milk was satisfied, lying in the warm embrace and closing her eyes peacefully. The big stone in my heart fell to the ground. Marajan then whispered, let's take her back to Fairy Tale. Mobai replied casually, of course we have to take her back. We can't just feed her and leave her here. Also, I think you seem a little. Halfway through his words, Mobai suddenly stopped. Marajan asked puzzledly, a little bit of what? A little bit, the glory of motherhood. Marajan's face showed a rare trace of shame and anger, and she glared at Mobai fiercely. Until the baby fell asleep. A faint snoring sound was heard. The blush on Marajan's face gradually dissipated, and she said softly, give her a name. Mina. Mobai blurted out without thinking. This child will be called Mina Strauss. From now on, she is also a member of your and Elfman's family. Strauss is the surname of the 3 Marajan sisters. Marajan looked at Mobai, who looked indifferent, with a meaningful look. At this moment, there seemed to be thousands of words in his heart. In the end, it only turned into one sentence. Thank you, Mobai. After everything was settled. Finally, on the way back to Fairy Tale. The commission was completed and the danger was temporarily lifted. In order to hold little Mina, Marajan simply opened the soul of Satan again and flew back to Magnolia with Mobai. When they reached the hill where they had stopped to watch that night, Mirajan's speed gradually slowed down, and she looked back nostalgically. Seeing her expression, Mobai also folded the storm dragon wings behind him and asked softly, "Do you want to go back and take another look?" Mirajan bit her lip and nodded. "After all, this may be the last time I come to Grak village." As for the current Grak village, it has been burned to pieces by the fire, with ruins everywhere and no one alive. It won't be long before it disappears in the long river of time. Looking at Mirajan with a lost look in his eyes, Mobai sighed and followed. "By the way, where did you live before?" "Just to the northwest of the village." Grak village is not small in size. After flying for 10 minutes from the hill, we finally arrived at the northwest corner. Following the memory, we walked forward heavily. The closer we get to home, the more timid we feel. When we stopped, Milaji originally thought that what lay before him would be a burnt-out abandoned house, or even razed to the ground. But the house before him was exactly the same as in his memory. The short eaves and narrow passages made it not crowded for 3 children to live in. There were just a few more weeds around. How could it be? The house is still here. Milaji's eyes were filled with disbelief. Before the demon attack, this house was obviously the most dilapidated in the whole village. But in the ruins now, it has become the only surviving house. Mobai smiled bitterly beside him. Maybe it's because it's too dilapidated. When the evil spirit temple invaded, they directly identified this place as an abandoned house with no one living here. They didn't even care about it when they set it on fire. It can be considered a blessing in disguise. Mobai slightly activated the iron dragon magic in his body. His arm turned into a pitch-black sword and cut the weeds clean. Chapter 36. Walked in slowly. No one had entered for more than a decade, and the things were already covered with a thick layer of dust, but for Mirajan, they were all precious memories. "Help me hold Mina." Walking to the small bed at the end of the room, Mirajan lowered his head and leaned over, took out a square wooden box from under the bed, dusted it off and gently opened it. An old yellowed photo lay quietly in it. Because of the protection of the wooden box, it was spotless. Mobai tilted his head to look, and the photo was actually of Mirajan, Elfman and Lysina in their childhood. Although yellowed, it could not hide the innocence and happiness of the 3 children's smiles. Judging from the degree of aging, it is at least 10 years old. On the second night after I left the village, I remembered that I didn't take this photo with me. One night after that, I secretly ran back to take the photo without telling Lysina and Elfman, but was driven out by the villagers. The photo matter has been put on hold. Looking at Mirajan, who was lost in memories, Mobai couldn't bear to interrupt her again. But he paid special attention to her expression. Perhaps it was because of Mina's joining. When Mirajan looked at the childhood photo of the 3 sisters, finally, she showed a long-lost smile, and no longer cried because of missing Lysina. "Let the child stay with you for a while, Mira. After a while, I will definitely bring Lysina back." Magnolia, Fairy Tale Guild. The receiving magic of Satan's soul consumes too much magic power. As soon as he landed at the entrance of the guild, Mirajan returned to his usual state, with a slightly pale face. Mobai suggested, "How about I hold Mina instead?" Mirajan shook her head and said softly, "I'll do it. Tilda, go open the door." There was no other way. Since leaving Grak village, Mirajan has been very fond of this child and almost never leaves her side. Mobai had no choice but to step forward. Kick the door open. It should be said that the quality of the door of his own guild is still good. "We are back. Hey, President, what are you doing?" What came into view was Makarov with an embarrassed face. And the people who were shouting and yelling. "President, where is the beer I ordered?" "I'll be there soon, I'll be there soon." "President, where is my lunch? I'm starving." "It's already cooking, wait a minute." "You're so stupid, President. I need to work. Please help me register the order." "You're the one taking the cloth again. I haven't seen you work for a few months. Why are you so active when I'm in charge of the order registration?" President, can you cosplay Mira? I think you're very unhappy. Makarov has no desire to live. Finally, he finished his work and knelt down at the door of the hall, enjoying this hard-earned rest time. Bang! The door was kicked open by some wicked guy, and Makarov, who was resting by the door, was slapped out and fell flat on his face. Hey, President, what are you doing? Mobai didn't understand and asked with concern. Makarov finally couldn't stand it anymore, and was about to use giant magic to beat up Mobai, but suddenly he caught a glimpse of Mirajan beside him. His eyes softened instantly, as if he saw a savior. Mira, Mira. The eyes of other members of the guild were also attracted. And the moment they saw Mirajan's figure, the whole place was silent. Mirajan took 2 steps at a time and bowed deeply to everyone with apology, saying, I'm sorry to have worried you all. I've been with Mobai to complete an expedited commission these 2 days and have left temporarily. I'll still be the waiter of the guild in the future. The silence lasted for a few seconds. Then came the enthusiastic screams and cheers of all the members, as if it was a holiday. Mira is back. Great, I don't have to eat the food cooked by the president anymore. Mira, promise me that you will go with me next time you encounter an emergency commission. You're back. Wait, what are you holding in your arms? Immersed in the joy of reunion, Makarov then noticed what Mira had been holding since she entered the door. But the altitude was not high enough to see it. Miraja smiled and leaned down gently. Oh, it's Mina Tilda. Makarov leaned over to see. Only then did he realize that it was a baby wrapped in a swaddling cloth, babbling to him with a smile. Then he looked at Mobai, who was calm and composed next to him. His worldview collapsed immediately. Makarov felt a tightness in his chest and almost spurted out blood. You guys. Miraja had a bright smile on her face, and while teasing the baby in her arms, she responded. Her name is Mina. From now on, we are a family Tilda. Seeing Miraja's happy expression, the people in the guild blushed quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then one by one, they aimed their hateful eyes at Mobai. Mobai looked innocent, but a sense of uneasiness rose in his heart. Then came the overwhelming saliva attack. You guys. Progress so fast. Good Mobai, I was quite supportive of you and Urza, thinking you were a warrior. I didn't expect you to be so cruel and attack Mira directly. Woo 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 woo, my Mira, my goddess. I haven't seen you for a few days. How come you even gave birth to a child? The flowers that the guild has cultivated for so long were picked just like that. I can't accept it. Mobai, I'm going to kill you. The sky is falling. Hey, can you listen to me first? This child was picked up by Mira and I. Mobai then told them everything they had done on this trip. From the attack on Grak village, to the encounter with the evil spirit temple, to the final defeat of Aniselan and the discovery of the surviving Mina. The faces of the people were relieved a little. Fortunately, the goddess was not taken away. Miraji then said, if I encounter an emergency in the future, I will trouble you to help take care of Mina. A group of people immediately followed suit. Of course, Myra's business is our business. The atmosphere became harmonious again. The few people who had just been clamoring to attack Mobai now immediately came up to him and called him a brother, which made Mobai very upset. Looking around the crowd, he did not find the crimson figure. Mobai casually asked Makarov next to him, by the way, Urza and the others haven't returned from the commission yet. Makarov shrugged. They came back on the same day you left, but they left again. Going to work again? Mobai asked with a frown. That's not the case. It's a bit troublesome to talk about. Simply put, in order to defeat the 6 demon generals of the Dark Guild, we and several other guilds each sent several wizards to form a coalition, and Urza and the others went to join the allies. Chapter 37. 6 Demon Generals. The crusade against the Dark Guild came so quickly that it was indeed somewhat beyond Mobai's expectations. The 3 giants of the Balam Alliance, the 6 demon generals, the demon heart, and the gate of Hades. The first to act were the 6 demon generals. And this battle with the 6 demon generals also involved many people that Mobai cares about. Of course, he couldn't just sit back and watch. Mobai immediately asked, "Where are Urza and the others gathering?" Makarov took a sip of tea and said slowly, "I put the map over there at the counter. Don't worry, there are still the 10 holy wizards in the alliance this time. Don't worry about them, listen to me analyze the situation for you first." Then he was about to start a long speech. But suddenly he felt a strong wind blowing from the side. Looking at where Mobai was standing, his figure had disappeared, the door was opened at some point, and it was still swinging back and forth at this moment. Makarov sat down angrily and complained, "It's really worrying. I shouldn't have told him earlier." Marahe smiled and advised, "He is also thinking about his partners, President." Mobai didn't listen to Makarov's description of the situation at all, and opened the storm dragon wings to fly out all the way. First, it saves time, and second, it is not necessary at all. No one knows better than him what the 6 demon generals are going to do. Their goal is the ancient forbidden magic sealed in the gas tree sea, Nirvana. Once Nirvana is activated, the light and darkness in the hearts of the affected will be replaced, and they may even swing the butcher knife at their companions. However, the 6 demon generals don't seem to know how to unlock the Nirvana seal. Only Jello knows. But before, the magic spirit power of the Paradise Tower went out of control, and Jello should not be able to escape. That is to say, the 6 demon generals may not know the exact method to activate Nirvana. Mobai's thoughts were a little confused. All mysteries will be answered only after arrival. Urza and the others had already set off 2 days in advance. At this moment, Mobai could only use the maximum speed of wind and thunder to try to join the coalition. Except for their president, there seems to be no one with ridiculously strong magic power among the 6 demon generals, but the magic itself is a bit fancy. If the timing is right, maybe both sides will be together and a group battle will be over. I hope it won't be too late. In addition to supporting Urza and others, Mobai also has some personal grudges on this trip. He wants to find Brian, the leader of the 6 demon generals, and some old accounts need to be settled. If conditions permit, Mobai doesn't want to see Brian leave here alive. Fortunately, the distance to the gas forest is closer than Grak village. In addition, this time he is flying alone. In the afternoon, the gloomy forest can be seen from a distance. There is still a faint thick smoke floating from one corner. Mobai's face showed a bit of solemnity. Rushing towards the sea of gas trees again, with a bird's eye view, Mobai finally found a group of injured wizards on the border open space. There were obvious signs of destruction all around, and the grass was covered with ugly scars from magic bombardment. Obviously, there had been a hard battle here before. Is it the guild coalition? It seems that they have been injured by all 6 demon generals, or they are a step too late. Mobai smiled bitterly, and as he dived down, the figures on the ground became clearer, and he soon identified several members of the fairy tale team. Urza, Natsu, Gray, Lucy, and Happy. Urza was particularly seriously injured. Her right arm was poisoned by snake venom, and was almost completely covered with purple. Fortunately, the blue-haired girl next to her cast a healing magic to relieve the pain. Realizing the movement from the air, the injured coalition looked up almost at the same time, and they were all alert to activate their magic power to prepare for defense. Be careful, the 6 demon generals may be back again. But this smell is very familiar. Natsu, who has a keen sense of smell, was the first to realize that something was wrong. Until his figure continued to grow in size in the field of vision, and finally slowly landed not far away, the people of Fairy Tale exclaimed in unison. Mobai. Mobai showed a forced smile. Sorry, I'm late. Seeing this, Urza immediately propped up her body with one arm and explained gently to everyone. Don't be nervous, Mobai is also a wizard of our fairy tale, but he has not joined for long. After hearing this, the others gradually let down their guard. Mobai glanced at them lightly. To him, they were all familiar yet unfamiliar faces. One night at the Blue Pegasus Guild, Hibiki, Ivan, Lien. Scales of the Snake Princess Shirley, Gray's senior brother Leo, and Jura, one of the 10 great saint mages. And Wendy, the Sky Dragon Slayer mages of the Demon Cat Inn, and her flying cat partner Shalulu. Looking at the blue-haired girl Wendy who was performing healing magic to detoxify Urza, Mobai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, walked slowly to their side, and gently bent down to check. Does the injury still hurt? Urza smiled palely and said hoarsely, with Wendy's healing magic, it's much better. But at this point, Urza changed the subject and her expression became difficult. We have just fought with the 6 demon generals, and each of them is very strong. I know. Mobai breathed a sigh of relief. Standing up and walking back to the center of the coalition, he spoke in a deep voice. I have all the information about the 6 demon generals. Listen to my arrangements next. I have a way to defeat them one by one. As soon as the words fell, without a pause, immediately, he was doubted and opposed by the others. Wait a minute, we just failed after we learned about the 6 demon generals. Yes, Zhang's magic information database has obtained their magic, but they are too powerful. Do you know more about the 6 demon generals than the magic information database? Gray's senior brother Leo reacted most strongly, and his eyes on Mobai became more and more unfriendly. Even if we need to formulate a battle plan, it should be formulated by Mr. Jura. We don't intend to hand our lives over to a newcomer. Leo has always pursued powerful strength. Among the people present, only Jura, one of the 10 holy mages, could convince him with his strength. Where did this Mobai come from? Seeing this, Urza was about to explain for Mobai. But she saw Mobai gently shaking his head at her, signaling to stop. Arusa had no choice but to give up. Mobai expected the distrust of other members of the coalition. After all, it was the first time they met. If you want the coalition to be convinced and obey your command, you have to show your real strength. Mobai was calm and walked straight to the middle of Leo and Jura, the Snake Princess, with 2 steps in 3 steps. What do you want to do? Leo narrowed his eyes slightly and vigilantly made an ice-shaped gesture, as if he was guarding against Mobai's sudden attack. The attention of the rest of the people was also attracted, as if a conflict was about to break out at any time. For a moment, the atmosphere was a little tense. Chapter 38. Mobai didn't say anything. His eyes suddenly burst into golden light, his pupils were submerged in it, and a magic circle of 8 colors bloomed under his feet. The majestic energy surged out and lingered around him, and suddenly exploded, with momentum reaching the sky, as if to break a corner of the sky. Everyone even faintly heard a dragon roar. The explosion of magic power to release pressure is undoubtedly the best way to prove strength. Although Mobai can only exert 3 dragon-slaying powers at the same time when he performs the secret of dragon slaying. But if it is just a simple display without attacking, it is not too difficult to release 8 kinds of magic at the same time. Jura and Leo were the closest to Mobai just now, and the impact they received was undoubtedly the greatest. They also had a completely intuitive understanding of Mobai's strength. They have only seen this kind of pressure on a few of the 10 holy mages. In any guild, he can be called the top powerhouse. Half a while. Leo then put away the disbelief on his face and said awkwardly, "You are indeed very strong." After that, Leo turned his head to look at Jura again. After all, Jura is the number 1 of the Snake Princess scale, and Leo, who has always been self-promoting, is used to listening to him. Jura said solemnly, "It seems that in terms of magic power storage alone, Mr. Mobai's strength is not inferior to mine. If you really have a plan to defeat the enemy, I am willing to follow your command." The tone was very sincere. Mobai couldn't help but have a better impression of Jura, a humble strong man. The first fight with the 6 demon generals has been frustrated, and everyone needs to regroup. I agree to let Brother Mobai take on this important task. Men tilde. After the Snake Princess scale, the leader of the Blue Pegasus also expressed his support all night. After saying that, he threw a wink at Mobai. Mobai almost vomited the overnight meal. Although Yi is known as the strongest of the Blue Pegasus, his appearance is really not flattering. In terms of the degree of vulgarity, even Nashiro is worse than him. The fairy tale team already has full trust in Mobai, so naturally they will not object. As for Wendy and Shalulu, they choose to be consistent with the majority. It is considered a unanimous approval. Mobai smiled calmly. Since everyone has no objection, then I will talk about my ideas next. At present, the 6 demon generals have not found Nirvana, and they are likely to disperse to various places in the gas tree sea to search separately. It is just convenient for us to divide into groups to annihilate. On the way here, I passed an area with gray smoke. It is very likely that the magic attack boat Christina was hit by the 6 demon generals and crashed. One Knight of the Blue Pegasus, Ivan and Lien, plus Leo, your task is to return to the original route to find Christina and try to restart. Mr. Jura of the Snake Princess scale is the strongest. You and Shirley will search the east in a group. Natsu, Lucy and the Blue Pegasus will go to the west. Arusa has not fully recovered from the poisoning. Wendy, Happy, Shalulu, you stay here for the time being to take care of her. It is also convenient to fly away when you encounter danger. Mobai deployed the tasks one by one. The only one left behind was the ice-shaped pervert in his team who took off his clothes at the slightest disagreement. Hey, what about me? Gray protested dissatisfiedly. Gray, whether the crusade against the 6 demon generals can be successfully completed today depends on you. You and I will set off in a straight line. After Mobai finished speaking, he looked at Gray meaningfully. Everyone looked at each other, wondering what he was up to. Even Gray himself was scratching his head and didn't understand. What do you mean by all depends on me? Mobai swept his eyes again and reminded. Another most important point. Ideally, Nirvana will not be so easily unsealed by the 6 demon generals. But some accidents cannot be ruled out. Once Nirvana is really activated, you must control your personal emotions. People who are on the border of light and darkness are most vulnerable to erosion. Action. The dense gas forest blocked the sky, and the strange magic fluctuations made Mobai not fly over. Instead, he chose to run forward with Gray and try to search for the traces of the 6 demon generals. For a long while. After thinking all the way, Gray still didn't figure out what Mobai's plan meant, and finally couldn't help asking. I still don't understand. You and Joel are much stronger than us. Why do you say I am the key to this operation? Mobai gradually slowed down his speed. But he did not answer directly, but asked, do you know who is the president of the 6 demon generals? Is it the man named Brian? He has a strange skull staff in his hand and some strange black stripes on his face. Recalling the scene of the first battle with the 6 demon generals, Gray still has some impression. Mobai shook his head firmly, not entirely right. What do you mean? Gray was confused. Mobai explained, Brian has a dual personality, one of which is the personality that we see now, who loves knowledge and magic, and his strength is similar to yours. And the other personality is the inner personality that is determined to destroy everything in front of him, the real president of the 6 demon generals, Wu. His strength is even above Jura. The power of Wu is too terrifying, even Brian himself can't fully control it, so he used some special method to seal Wu in his body. Recalling Brian's weird face, Gray suddenly realized, so those black stripes on Brian's face are seals. Mobai nodded and gave an affirmative response. Yes, the black stripes of the 6 seals correspond to the wishes of the 6 members. When the 6 prayers disappear, the seal is lifted, and Wu will replace Brian. Gray couldn't help interrupting again. In this case, whether they defeat the existing 6 demon generals or not, they are already invincible. According to Gray's idea, if the 6 demons win, this crusade will fail. If the 6 demons lose, President Wu will appear and kill all the people with low health, and this crusade will also fail. You still haven't turned around. Mobai knocked on Gray's head helplessly. Why do I specifically ask you to act with me? Isn't it because I value your ice-shaping magic? As long as we work together to capture one of the 6 demon generals alive, and use your ice prison to control his actions while he still has combat consciousness, his prayers will not disappear. In this way, President Wu will not show up, and a fierce battle can be avoided. In other words, as long as one of them is still aware of the battle, I alone have enough ability to sweep the remaining 5. Mobai finally revealed his plan. He was not afraid of President Wu. Even if something unexpected happened and Wu was released, Mobai would still be at the forefront without hesitation. It's just that sometimes, if you can choose not to take risks in unnecessary battles, don't take risks. As for why he didn't use his own wooden dragon to entangle, but chose Gray's ice prison, it was actually very simple. The root entanglement has too many limitations and can only bind the opponent in place. The ice prison is much more convenient. After capturing a certain unlucky guy of the 6 demon generals alive, he can be put in it directly. Put it under your nose and take it wherever you want, without worrying about escape. Gray finally understood why Mobai said that he would be the key to this battle. At the same time, he also gave a thumbs up and praised sincerely, "Good plan. You are really good." Mobai's face became unnatural. The sight slowly moved down. The smile on his face gradually solidified. "Gray, put on your pants. You can take off your shirt, but it's not civilized to walk your bird anywhere." "Ah, when did you take it off?" Gray then picked up the trousers beside him and put them back on. Taking off his clothes in excitement has become an instinctive reaction. Gray coughed awkwardly twice and asked, "Ahem, but by the way, how did you know about Brian's things? I remember that the Blue Pegasus has information database magic, but it can't find out as detailed as you do." "Well, we'll talk about it later. Anyway, listen to my orders later and remember to catch him alive." Mobai was evasive and changed the subject. "I can't tell Gray that I came here from another time, right?" Resume the speed of travel. This time, before walking for long, Mobai felt a magical energy nearby that he had never seen before. It was erratic, sometimes in front, and sometimes suddenly flashed behind. "Stop!" Stopped Gray beside him. Mobai stopped in an open space and watched vigilantly. And that energy finally stopped on the thick branches of the gas tree in the distance. Mobai looked up and immediately recognized the other party's identity. "It's Lisa, one of the 6 demon generals. It seems that we are lucky. We should be the first team to fight with the 6 demon generals." Gray is not like Mobai, and does not have such strong 5 senses. "Ah. Why didn't I see it?" Mobai whispered. "It doesn't matter. Lisa's magic is special. Wait and follow my instructions." On the gas tree. Lisa has a yellow coxcomb hair, a long and pointed nose, and gray goggles covering his eyes, just like a goblin in human skin. At this moment, he was squatting on the tree. Lisa did not panic when he realized that Mobai and the others had found him. Zhang, on the contrary, laughed with interest. "I'm very fast. 2 slow goblins, can you catch up with me?" Chapter 39. In Lisa's sight. Mobai and Gray whispered a few words, and then it seemed that some dispute broke out, and they even insulted each other. Gray turned around and ran to the back indignantly. Lisa sneered, jumped down from the branch, and appeared in front of Mobai in a flash, teasing. "What? There is an internal conflict before the fight even started." Mobai frowned, and his words were full of disgust for Gray. "That blind naked bastard. I told him countless times that the 6 demon generals were not far away, but he still refused to believe it. But I am enough to deal with you alone." As he spoke, the dragon-slaying magic power condensed into wings from behind, and the wind swept up a large area of grass and trees, rushing towards Lisa first. "Too slow." Lisa laughed. At the moment of the collision, Lisa's figure disappeared strangely on the spot. "What?" Mobai opened his mouth into an O shape for 5 full seconds, making an extremely exaggerated expression of astonishment. Lisa's vanity was greatly satisfied, and she shouted arrogantly, "You can't catch up with me. Then at the next speed, I'm afraid your soul will be thrown out." How motorcycle show. As Lisa's body floated down, her palm suddenly hit the ground, and the scarlet magic circle was summoned. The light in the center of the magic circle dissipated. It contained a motorcycle with red and yellow stripes. "Slow goblin, are you ready to eat my exhaust?" A proud laugh came from Lisa's mouth. Riding on the motorcycle, Lisa infused the magic power in his body into it, and suddenly burst out with an even more amazing speed. Grasping the absolute initiative in speed, Lisa was not in a hurry to attack, but tried to continue to increase the horsepower and circle around Mobai. The high-speed motorcycle rolled up hurricanes, even cutting the swaying weeds in half. Lisa wanted to use this method to wear down Mobai's fighting spirit bit by bit. Seeing this, Mobai immediately activated another golden dragon-killing magic crystal in his body. The violent magic power suddenly appeared, and Mobai was already surrounded by thunder and lightning arcs. If the storm dragon wings alone can't catch up, then add another layer of thunder and lightning power. Lisa then looked at Mobai again. The speed of thunder and lightning and storm. Interesting. Facing the violent Mobai, Lisa no longer held back and rushed forward at the highest speed. Seeing that the motorcycle was approaching the cliff, he turned the front of the car in time and returned to the original road, deliberately teasing Mobai. But the powerful dragon-killing pressure behind him remained unabated. "Still chasing me? Then your speed has reached the passing level." Leaving the motorcycle behind, Lisa dodged into the bushes nearby and jumped onto the branch where she was at the beginning. Looking back, Mobai had already arrived and was standing in the air with his wings to confront her. "It's so exciting. It's been a long time since anyone could reach the same speed as me. Ha ha ha. Game time is over, little fairy. Your magic power has been used up in the pursuit just now, right? Next, after I attack you, you won't have the strength to run away." Mobai watched him go crazy in the same place quietly, until Lisa finished speaking. Mobai then said expressionlessly, "Well, you won't be able to run away soon." "What?" Lisa then felt a chill coming from above. Looking up, the originally gloomy sea of gas trees had been hung with more than a dozen ice cages. It was like a dragnet. And he happened to be right under a cage. "Just now I seemed too obsessed with chasing you. But do you want to lock me up? Your cage can't keep up with my speed." Facing Lisa's sneer, Mobai looked indifferent, as if he had long realized that he would say that. He raised his hand casually and pointed behind Lisa. Lisa looked back in surprise, but saw a young wizard with a naked upper body standing on the top of a tree towering into the sky in the distance. The wizard made a fist with his left hand and a palm with his right hand, and the piercing cold breath kept coming out of his hands. Lisa was shocked. "As that? Your companion?" "Correct answer, but unfortunately there is no reward. Gray, do it." As Mobai's shouting came into his ears, Gray in the distance focused all his attention on the cage that had been arranged long ago. The magic power was cast, and more than a dozen cages instantly merged into one, and fell with a huge impact. "Ice-shaped prison. It's useless, I'm very fast." Lisa's voice was not finished. Boom. The birdcage-shaped prison suddenly fell down, directly trapping Lisa in it, breaking along with the branches, and fell to the ground with a bang. Mobai also folded up the wings of the storm dragon and went to check the situation below. Prison. Lisa's eyes were full of shock. "Impossible, my speed is unmatched in the world, how could I not dodge this?" Mobai poured a basin of cold water on him without hesitation, and then said, "Because your speed is not that fast at all. What you used is just a magic that makes people's speed and perception of speed decrease unconsciously, while your speed remains unchanged. In this comparison, it seems that your speed is very fast. It's a bit self-deception." Lisa was speechless for a while after being seen through by Mobai's magic trick. At this time, Gray, who had completed the task, also poked his body out of the bushes, walked to the cage and said, Mobai and I had already discussed the strategy before fighting you. Mobai has long seen that your magic has a range of use. As long as you are far enough away from you, you will not be affected by the slowdown. That's why I stood there and released the ice prison. Recalling the scenes of his rampant behavior just now, Lisa finally realized that she had fallen into the trap of these two people from the beginning. She immediately beat the ice prison with her fists and feet like crazy, and shouted angrily. Two cunning fairies, are these the only tricks you can use? Mobai still looked calm and casually tore off a large piece of bark next to him and chewed it in his mouth to restore his magic power. Baji, save it, if it weren't for capturing you alive, do you really think I can't beat you? Baji, capture me alive, what are you going to do? Lisa seemed to hear something wrong. When the 6 prayers disappear, the president of the 6 demon generals, Wu, will come, am I right? Lisa was immediately shocked. How? How is it possible? How do you know this? Mobai looked at Lisa with a surprised face and waved at Gray. You don't need to know this. What you need to do is to stay in the cage and make sure your prayers don't disappear. We won't let you get hurt. Gray understood immediately when he saw this. The ice magic burst out again, spreading to the ice prison, and the ice began to grow continuously. The coldness penetrated Lisa's body, and her hair stood on end. Wait, what are you going to do? Mobai then explained. Don't worry, I said I won't hurt you. It's just to prevent you from hurting yourself. Lisa looked down at her body and found that it was completely covered by ice and could no longer move. Wait, Lisa wanted to say something else, but the ice had already spread to her face and directly sealed her mouth. Half a minute later, the ice cage was completely solid. Lisa was sealed in it, not to mention her body, even her eyes couldn't move. Mobai also stepped forward and kicked her twice. Is your ice cube cooked? After receiving Gray's affirmative answer and confirming that it was strong enough, Mobai carried the ice cage on his back and moved forward again. Although Lisa's magic power could not function, he still retained a clear consciousness. He carefully recalled the scene of the first battle between the 6 demon generals and the Guild Alliance. Finally confirmed that Mobai was not in the opponent's team at that time. Lisa immediately fell into regret and completely despised Mobai, the airborne foreign aide. But how did he know the secret of the 6 demon generals? Chapter 40. South of the Gas Sea. The 3 Blue Pegasus and Leo walked forward half-believingly. On the way, Ivan finally couldn't help but say, Teacher Yi. Ye turned around and smiled, thinking he was very handsome. Tilda, what's the matter? Ivan asked. How did Mobai know about the magic attack boat Christina? Logically speaking, he couldn't have seen it before. Ye didn't seem to care about it, and answered casually, since we are allies, don't think too much about these issues, believe in brother Mobai. Men. You are worthy of being Teacher Yi. While the two were talking, Leo suddenly shouted excitedly. Look over there, there is smoke. It must be Christina. Leo unconsciously sped up and happily passed through the bushes in front. Then he saw the magic attack boat Christina, which was almost crashed. Sure enough, it's here. The once powerful magic attack boat Christina is now in a semi-scrapped state due to the attack of the 6 demon generals. The cockpit exploded and half of the wing was damaged. It seems impossible to return to the sky. After a night of investigation, his face was slightly solemn. The cockpit can be handed over to Ivan for repair, but there are too many damaged parts, I'm afraid. Leo took over and said, this is easy, I can temporarily replace the missing parts with my ice-shape magic. Leo immediately made his fists and palms together, and the ice magic flowed to the side of Christina. It condensed into a beautiful white wing in an instant, exactly the same as before. The 3 Blue Pegasus were overjoyed and tried their best to rescue the cockpit. Yi couldn't help but sigh, that Mobai brothers' plan is really good. In this way, we can work together and really make Christina fly again. Men. Leo was even more confused. But how did he know that I can use ice-shaping magic? Did Gray tell him? At present, this is the only reasonable explanation that can be thought of. At the same time, Jura and Shirley suddenly stopped while searching. In the shadow under the tree in front, a burly figure slowly emerged and was walking towards the two of them. This person was dressed like a monk, taller than Jura, his long orange-yellow hair was draped behind him, and his right arm was wrapped around a magic book engraved with strange patterns. Hitai. Jura looked stern, and immediately recognized the other party. He turned around and shouted to Shirley, "Go! Go!" Hitai's magic is mainly range attack. Shirley, who has weaker magic power, can only be involved in it and injured for no reason if she stays here. Seeing Shirley retreat to a safe place, Jura immediately pushed forward with his right palm, and the powerful earth attribute energy suddenly burst out. The earth trembled, and dozens of stone cones rose from the cracks in an instant, attacking Hitai all the way. On the other hand, Hitai was not in a hurry in the face of the tough attack. His right arm still embraced the magic book, and his left hand waved casually. The originally hard and sharp stone cones all became soft, like a pool of mud. Hitai smiled and said, "Your magic is to make the soil as hard as rock iron, and I can soften the sand. All your attacks are ineffective against me, right?" Jura's face was more resolute and courageous. He took a deep breath, and put his right index finger and middle finger together, and the fingertips flashed with a persevering magic light. As his fingers danced, the earth trembled violently again, as if a powerful and mysterious force was surging out from the ground. Rock and iron pillars. With a deafening sound, 4 thick rock pillars suddenly rose from under Hitai, vowing to blow him away. "I've already said that all your earth attribute magic is ineffective against me. Right?" Hitai shook his head and used the same trick again. Softening magic power activated. The originally thick, long, big and hard rock pillars spasmed like Yongwei, and fell to the ground limply. Jura's attack failed again. "Come again, rock and iron pillars." With Jura's continuous attack, Hitai perfectly resolved each time. Unknowingly, the battle has lasted for hundreds of rounds. The flying sand and rocks covered the entire eastern forest, and the places they passed were turned upside down, with protruding sharp corners and broken rocks everywhere. But apart from the consumption of magic power, the two of them suffered almost no external injuries. Jura was preparing to launch the next round of magic. But suddenly, he felt a terrifying magic power coming from below, breaking through the surface at an extremely fast speed. Boom! Jura and Hete dodged backwards almost at the same time. A huge white beam of light appeared where the person was originally, and it shot straight into the sky, causing the sky to change drastically. Several gray-black magic waves entangled it, emitting strange fluctuations. Jura was shocked. Although he was a Saint 10, the magic power in his body was like an ant compared to this mysterious beam of light. Could this be Nirvana? Hitai's face also flashed with surprise. However, unlike Jura, Hitai soon showed a look of joy of unexpected victory. "So Nirvana is underground, isn't that right? Because we have been using earth-attributed magic to fight just now, the energy fluctuations were infused into the ground, which accidentally unlocked Nirvana. Isn't that right?" Jura came back to his senses from the shock. "The accident that Lord Mobai said really happened. I have to find a way to reunite with them first. Once Nirvana is launched, this crusade will definitely fail." Firmly thinking this in his heart, Jula suddenly heard a shrill cry in front of him. Ah! Looking up, it was Hitai who had just fought with him for hundreds of rounds. But for some reason, at this moment, his face was full of struggle and torment. He held his head tightly with both hands to try to relieve the pain, but it was useless. Jula watched cautiously, fearing that this was another trick. Money, 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 money. The word money kept coming out of Hitai's mouth, but his voice became smaller and smaller until he was hoarse. Money. I don't want that thing. Hitai suddenly said this arrogantly, and his hands left his face. In an instant, even his eyes became clear. I don't want money tilde. Really tilde. Huh. Looking at his huge change before and after, Jura was immediately confused. Seeing Jura didn't respond, Hitai immediately told his past experiences with great emotion. I desperately wanted to see my brother who was separated from me in childhood, thinking that I could find him if I had money. Really tilde. But it wasn't until now that I realized that I had been going in the wrong direction and shouldn't have joined the Dark Guild. Really tilde. Okay, now let's go together to stop the atrocities of my former partners, Mr. Jura. Really tilde. As soon as Hitai finished speaking, he rushed forward and hugged Jura in his arms, crying bitterly. Tears flowed on Jura's bald head. Sir Jura, I thought of my brother when I saw you, and I couldn't control my emotions. Really tilde. Jura was puzzled. Why? Why, do I look like your brother? No, your bald head looks like the potatoes my brother likes to eat. Really? I'm not a potato, I'm a baby. No, it's a head. Jura was confused. Finally recalled the information about Nirvana mentioned by Mobai and Shang. Only then did he realize that Hitai might have been affected by the replacement of light and darkness in Nirvana. In the battle between justice and evil in his heart, he has transformed into a kind personality.